Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. I hope you don't mind, I'm just doing a little phone intro here because I'm going to switch to voiceover in a moment because my dog sadly is still ill and she is on seizure watch. So I am, other than these brief moments, I'm trying to keep the house as dark and quiet as possible for her. But today I am looking at a book that I have seen it all over the internet recently on lists of books that are fantastic and lists of books to absolutely 100% avoid, and that is The Perfect Marriage by Jeneva Rose. But what made me finally decide to read this and make a video about it was a couple of you guys commenting in the comments of my last video, and also these two particular Goodreads reviews that I saw. One said, 1 star, y'all. This book made me so angry. I don't think I've ever been so angry when reading a book the entire time, but I was committed, so I did not finish. And another one which actually did give it 2 stars, but it said it was a Gone Girl wannabe. I found this fascinating, and I'm going to switch up to voiceover and tell you exactly why. Okay, so this made me really intrigued about the book because I'm a big Gillian Flynn fan. When I first read Gone Girl about, oh god, it must be like, what, 12 years ago now? Which is longer than I realised. I was shocked, I loved it, I was absolutely hooked. I immediately went out and bought and read her 2 other books, Dark Places and Sharp Objects, thought they were fantastic. Like, Gillian Flynn does so much right. She does these complex, morally grey characters who you kind of love to hate, and she clearly critiques their problematic behaviour rather than glamorizes it in her work, you know? She creates these enthralling mysteries which have great payoffs, and I still think about these stories more than 10 years later. And to me, that's a sign of a really good writer, you know? Plus, her work is readable and accessible, which makes it nice for kind of, I don't want to say a relaxing read because it's a thriller, but like a fun read, you know? It's not too heavy, it's not too difficult. I think it's something that a lot of people can get into. I am a huge fan of thrillers, as you probably have realised at this point, but I do find there are some that are just quite forgettable. So about a year ago now, I read Jason Rekulak, I think that's how you say his surname. I read his novel Hidden Pictures, and at the time I thought, despite the questionable and potentially offensive twist ending, I thought it was a fine book, you know, and I didn't mind reading it, I thought it was okay. And yet every time that book pops up on like a list of recommended books, or I see it in a bookshop or whatever, I look at it, I'm like, I know I've read this, can't remember what it's about, and I have to like flick through and remind myself what the story was actually about. And that's what I had to do when deciding to speak about it for this video, because I was like, oh god, this is one that I can't remember what it is, and I had to go back and like flick through it again, because it was fine. But despite the shocking and potentially offensive ending, it was quite forgettable, which is a shame. Whereas when you have like a really good crime or thriller author, like someone like Janice Hallett or Gillian Flynn or Peter James, I can almost always remember those books that they've written in detail because I found them so enjoyable, you know? So seeing someone say that this author, Jeneva Rose, is trying to be Gillian Flynn and not necessarily pulling it off, that's something that I found intriguing and wanted to check out for myself. So let's look at the Amazon description for this book. Our blurb reads, his mistress is dead, his wife is his only hope. Sarah Morgan is one of the best criminal defense attorneys in Washington, D.C. With a perfect case record and having made named partner before the age of 35, her life is going exactly as she planned. Okay, we love a strong, capable, intelligent protagonist, right? Sounds promising. However, the same cannot be said for her husband Adam, a failed author who's grown to resent his wife's meteoric success as he feels it comes at the expense of their relationship. Okay, a man being resentful of his wife's success. Too familiar. Great setup. I've literally went through that with my breakup last year. For almost 2 years, Adam has kept his affair with Kelly Summers a secret, but everything changes when her body is discovered at the couple's lake house, and Adam is arrested on suspicion of murder. So, an affair partner shows up dead, and we don't know who's done it. I'm sure there will be many suspects. Sarah would be the first one that springs to mind, because, you know, her husband was cheating, killed the mistress, right? That seems pretty common. Then Adam would also be a suspect. If she had any other partners, like if she was married to, they could be a suspect. I think there's a lot of potential options here. It is perhaps a little cliched, but there's possibility for a really decent story here. I think if you do something unexpected with it, could be really fun.
Sarah now finds herself facing her most challenging case yet when she vows to defend her husband, a man accused of murdering his mistress. While Adam is certainly guilty of sleeping with Kelly, the question remains, is he guilty of killing her too? And this is where I kind of start to have my doubts about the book. So she's defending her husband who's on trial for murder after finding out he cheated on her. So I'm like, well, maybe she's not as strong and independent and as smart as we would like her to be, or I would like her to be. Either that, or to me, like, the obvious answer would be, well, she's the one who killed Kelly, and either A, is feeling guilty about Adam being accused of it, or B, she's trying to make sure he gets convicted of it. But again, I was like, that would be a little bit cliched, so I don't know. And I've heard this book is kind of like, it's meant to have like a shocking twist, so I'm like, okay, they're not going to go for the cliched thing like this, right? Honestly though, if I was just reading for fun, I probably wouldn't pick this up because it sounds a little generic for my taste, and the whole like cheating murder mystery thing I think has been overdone. But I've heard it's shocking, so I am more than willing to give it a chance. And I want this to be crazy. I want this to be out there. I want this to be like, you know, something I don't see coming. Because I do love an author that takes quite a simple premise or a setup which has the potential to be quite cliched, and they do something new with it. They do something inventive with it. So Benjamin Stevenson is, in my opinion, a master of doing this. His first book could have very easily been a cliched, typical whodunit set in like a kind of remote location. His second book could have been a very simple locked room train mystery. But through his writing, he really showcased his understanding of the mystery genre in general, and he was able to create something that was quite meta, but really, really interesting, really funny, really engaging in both his books. His books were Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone and Everyone on This Train Has Killed Someone. And his main character is an author who writes about crime fiction and like analyzes crime fiction and knows all the genre conventions. So when he finds himself basically in a real life crime mystery, he's like, oh God, like, let me use my knowledge of this fictional genre to figure out the like mystery for myself. And it's so well done. It's fantastic. It's really, really funny. The characters are brilliant. Like, I love his writing. So that's a really good example of what could be like a simple cliched premise being done in a really, really inventive and creative way, and, you know, creating a book that is really engaging and really wonderful. I would hope going into this that Geneva can do the same. Sorry, I keep wanting to call her Jeneva, like as in like Jennifer spelt wrong, but I looked at her Instagram account and her husband always calls her Geneva. So, but like, you know, it's spelt with a J rather than a G, so it keeps throwing me off. So Geneva, I really hope she can do the same. I am going to be making this video and recording it in the same format as I did my last Freedom McFadden video, where I'm writing my script as I read the book. So you'll be hearing my thoughts and theories as we go through the book together. And I had a lot of fun with writing this script because I was like, oh God, okay, let's come up with like the craziest theories we can. And I was like coming up with my own ideas and being like, and then this happened, and I think this, and this. And I had a lot of fun with it until the end of the book where I got to the reveal. And I was like, oh, well, if only the author had been as ridiculous as me. But I did have fun coming up with my silly theories along the way. And if you guys want to chime in the comments at any time with your own theories, your own thoughts, please do, because I think that's part of the fun, isn't it? With a silly book like this, yeah, come up with your own absolutely mad theories. If you want to give me the theory of like, and then there was an alien abduction, and then this and this and this, and then they were brainwashed, like, tell me all your ridiculous thoughts, please, because that's part of the fun, isn't it? So just be aware that as we go forward, of course, there's going to be many, many, many spoilers ahead for the entire book. But let's jump into it and start with the prologue. Did he love her? He loved the way she looked at him, the way her bottom lip trembled and her foot quaked when she orgasmed. He loved the way her long chestnut locks fell in front of her doe eyes as she rode him, and the way her slender back curved into a crescent moon when he thrust her from behind. Did he love her? He loved parts of her. But the question isn't whether or not he loved her. The question is, did he kill her? So straight away, from the prologue, I do not like Adam. And this doesn't change throughout the entire book, I'll tell you that now. I hate him. He is one of the worst, most irredeemable characters in all of fiction, just because he's so damn irritating. I mean, he's awful, but he's, oh God, like, when I say he's one of the worst characters, I don't mean like he's flat out evil, you know. He's just, oh God, like, if you knew Adam in real life, you would oh God, you couldn't stand to be around. I couldn't stand to be around him, you know? He resents his successful wife. He betrays her. He thinks only with his penis. I would appreciate if in the opening of this book we learned a little more about the murder victim than just man thinks she's hot, but I was like, you know what, let's see where this goes. I'll be honest though, we don't really learn much more about Kelly other than that. I mean, we find out some things from her past, but nothing that doesn't revolve around a man, which is a little disappointing. Going into chapter 1, this starts from Sarah's perspective. Sarah is the lawyer wife, and so far my number one suspect, just from reading the blurb. Because I mean, she's the obvious choice, right? You know? Hopefully I'll be proven wrong and we'll be shocked, and it won't be something so obvious, but from reading the blurb, Sarah was my first suspect. Immediately, we are introduced to characters who are incredibly cliched. Sarah is successful, so she wears her hair in a tight bun and dresses in pencil skirts, whereas Adam is just like a super hot, big, tall man with muscles and me. He takes the bait, walking to me, his 6'2" stature towering over my petite body. He puts his hand to my cheek, lifts my chin, and kisses me softly on the lips. Every hair raises on my body. After 10 years of marriage, Adam still does that for me. After 10 years of marriage, I still do that for him. Disappoint, I mean. I will warn you now, a lot of this book is really poorly written. Just go with it, because it doesn't get better. And I just... Again, they just feel very generic. I just wish for once in one of these books we had some variation in body type, you know? And I swear I have this rant every time I read a book about any kind of romance. But what about different types of women? Give me some tall, statuesque women. Give me curvy women. What about short men? What about men with dad bods? Like, give me some nice average people who actually feel real. I wanna read about a real relationship, you know? Not just like, oh, she was tiny and petite and beautiful, and he was tall and had muscles, and like, oh my God, her vagina got wet every time he even looked at her because he was just like, I can't deal with that. Anyway, Sarah has apparently disappointed Adam again because she has had to delay a trip to their lake house because she has to work. You always have so much work to do. There's always a big case you're working on. He narrows his eyes at me playfully, but in a somewhat accusing way, as if I were now on trial. Someone has to pay the bills. I give a small smile. That lands. He shakes his head so lightly I almost don't notice it, but I need to acknowledge it. I place my hands on his shoulders. He pretends he won't lean down to meet my lips, but I know he will. He can't resist me. Just like I can't resist him. So he resents her, she won't make time for him, but his penis is so magical that sometimes it makes her want to quit her job, and therefore she thinks they have a wonderful marriage. He smiles, but his game of tug-of-war only lasts a few seconds before his body bends towards me. Our lips meet again, this time more passionate. This time our mouths spread, our tongues swirl, his hands run up and down my back. I consider calling it all off at that moment. I'll quit the firm, we'll sell this house, and we'll move to our lake house in Virginia. Just the two of us, running hand in hand into our own fairy tale. Sure, right, yeah, cool, sure. I have to go, I whisper into his ear as I pull away. I'm always the first to pull away. Someday we'll be everything I always knew we would be, but someday isn't today. Reading this, I was like, what does this even mean? And I was like, if you're always living for someday, you're just going to be miserable, right? Like, if you're always like, oh, you know, do it someday, like, you're always going to be miserable if you do that. But I was, having read the book and knowing the ending, someday we'll be everything I always knew we would be, but someday isn't. I don't know what this means. In the whole context of the novel, this makes no sense. This weekend is supposed to be their 10-year anniversary, and Sarah is going to be late to meet him on the day of their anniversary at the lake house, and Adam says he's fed up. I do understand this, but I also just feel like, you know, like, you knew what job she was training for when you met her. You knew what job she did when you married her. You know lawyers work long, difficult hours. Don't marry someone and then complain when they remain the same person they've always been, you know? If you didn't want to be married to a lawyer, don't marry a lawyer. She gives him his anniversary present before she goes to work, and it's some super expensive and rare watch that he's wanted for years. Don't ask me about it. I know nothing about watches or anything expensive or luxury, but he responds by being snarky instead of thanking her. He holds out his wrist, admiring it. Is this so I can keep track of every time you're late or stand me up? He teases. I roll my eyes at him. I'm kidding. No, you're not. I tilt my head. I know he's not kidding. He lowers his arm and returns his attention to me, placing his hands on my shoulders, running them down my arms. You're right, but I love you anyway, Sarah. He kisses me hard. This is a man just dripping with resentment and bitterness, and it's gross. You don't speak to someone you apparently love like this. There's a bunch of descriptions of their big fancy house, and brand names keep getting thrown around, so it's meant to show us that they're rich. The reliance on brand names is something you'll see throughout the whole book, and it's a problem I have because instead of like bothering to describe anything, she just threw out brand names and expected us to know them and what that meant, but I don't, so we'll get to it more as we get to it. They also set up some drama with Adam's mum. She sent them an anniversary card, which Sarah took to be passive-aggressive because it had a message in saying, "I can't believe you lasted 10 years. Happy anniversary, my darling Adam and Sarah. P.S. Where are my grandchildren? Love, Mum." Sarah is understandably upset by it and throws it away. Adam ignores her feelings by fishing it out of the bin and pinning it on the fridge. Adam says he's going to head up to the lake house anyway and do some writing, and she is going to head to work. Sarah says she'll try and get up there tomorrow for a few hours on their actual anniversary day, and then the chapter ends. And what we've learned so far is that these two people seem to hate pretty much everything about each other, but still find each other attractive, so they think it's love and something, it's a healthy marriage, I guess, except it's not. I read this, just screaming to myself, just break up already. Like, you can't root for a couple who clearly hate each other. You can't care about these characters who aren't doing anything to help themselves. It's just frustrating. Really frustrating. Chapter 2 is Adam's chapter from his perspective. He says he likes the lake house because he can be alone. Or not alone. A secluded cabin on Lake Manassas surrounded by woods in Prince William County, Virginia was just what my writing career needed, or at least that's how I sold the idea to Sarah. I'd struggled to get the words out up until just over a year ago when we purchased this second home. It opened another world for me, a world in which I could write, a world full of obtainable desires, a world I could live in without feeling the constant pressure that I wasn't good enough. Sorry, but what do you mean when we bought this second home? Don't you mean your wife bought it for you because you refused to get a real job and pay your way? Maybe you would stop feeling not good enough if you actually contributed to your family instead of just taking your wife's money and using it to cheat on her. Just saying. I have no sympathy for Adam at all. I wrote in my original script here, I would not blame Sarah if she's gone to all this trouble just to frame him for murder. And I'm not saying that, like, because he's an author, right? I'm not saying that's not a real job, but he's a failed author. He had one book that did okay like 10 years ago, and he hasn't written anything that's made any money since, so he has just been living off his wife's income and not doing anything and refusing to like get any other jobs or do any real work, and that's what I have the problem with. It didn't take much to convince Sarah that we should purchase this home away from home. I think she could sense that I was drifting away, mentally, emotionally. Or maybe she just wanted to show me that she could buy it, to remind me once again of her fiscal hold over me, wielding it as a show of power. Whatever the reason may be, I still got the house, so who effing cares? Sorry, but you can't compare her giving you everything you want to her holding fiscal power over you. Financial abuse is absolutely 100% a thing, and it's serious. But you just refusing to get a job and her having to provide for your every whim and like dressing you in luxury items and getting you the fanciest stuff and paying for your scotch addiction, like, that's not her holding financial power over you, or sorry, having a fiscal hold over you. That's just her looking out for her deadbeat husband who doesn't do anything for himself. I've always felt like Sarah was taking on the world while I was just struggling to live in it. That's the woman she wanted to be, a powerhouse, a one-woman show where I just happened to be cast as an extra. It wasn't always like that. We met while I was in my third year of undergrad at Duke, and she was in her first. She was studying political science while I was studying literature. Back then, we both dreamed of greatness. Sarah wanted to be a successful lawyer, and I wanted to go down as one of the truly great writers of our generation. 15 years later, one of us is still waiting. Okay, the timeline doesn't make sense then. Yeah, the timeline here doesn't make sense. She was in her first year at uni, he was in his third year. So that would be about 2 years between them, right? Let's say she was 18, he would have been 19, he would have been 20 or 21, right? Okay, so that could be 3 years between them, because there is a 3-year age gap, at least in the current day time period. So I'm just gonna tell you this now and try and think this through in my head. If she was 18 or 19 when they met, then they got married 3 years later, so she would have been 21, maybe 22, and then they have their 10-year wedding anniversary, so that's 13 years later. So she would be 31 or 32 at this point, but she's not. She's 33 and he's 36. So they've just lost a year somewhere. Anyway, point is, Adam is insecure and intimidated, and he thinks that's a reasonable excuse to cheat on and betray his wife and potentially open her up to the risk of sexually transmitted diseases. That's horrible. I've tasted a small sampling of triumph, but I haven't exactly lived out my dreams. Sarah's dream was to be a criminal defence attorney, one of the best. She's not one of the best, she is the best, like I always knew she would be. I just never thought I'd resent her so much for it. I've never understood people who resent the success of their partners and friends instead of celebrating it. Like, if you really genuinely love someone, you're happy for their success. You don't resent it. Anyway. Adam needs therapy, not some mistress on the side. Adam thinks back to how they met, and it's honestly just kind of creepy and objectifying, if I'm honest. Like, I'm shocked that this was actually written by a woman. He cares about absolutely nothing but her appearance, and it's just a bit bleh. Her green eyes that were speckled with flakes of yellow held all the mystery in the world. Her slender body was covered in a form-fitting white tee and flared blue jeans. An inch of her midriff was peeking out, and I couldn't keep my eyes off it. A sliver of her exposed milky white skin aroused me more than my ex's fully nude body had. Like, can we not compare women to women, please, like this? I watched her. I studied her. Before I had ever uttered a word to her, I had memorised every curve, every line, every freckle that I was privy to in that dingy basement. I pictured what she would look like underneath her clothes. I would later find out that what I had envisioned was wrong. Her body exceeded the limitations of my own imagination. She was perfect, something I could neither conceive nor comprehend. At first she was a little standoffish, giving one-word answers. I asked her name. She told me it was Sarah. I asked her who she was here with. She pointed to an inebriated brunette grinding on a guy on the dance floor. I asked if she wanted to dance. She said no. I told her she was beautiful. She shrugged her shoulders. I told her my name was Adam. She took a sip of beer. I asked her what she was studying. She tapped her beer, signalling she needed a refill, and started to walk away. I grabbed her cup and poured my full cup of beer into hers. She smiled up at me, taking the cup back and returning to her position against the wall. Like, ladies, in the real world, if a strange man pours you a drink like this, do not drink it. That is not safe at all. And men, don't do this. This is not cute or sexy or flirty. It's creepy and dangerous. He then spent 20 minutes, and yes, he counted, hovering awkwardly next to her, not talking. She decided to leave the party, so he's like, cool, I'll walk you home. And then the minute they get back to her flat or dorm or room or whatever it is, she just immediately grabs him and has sex with him. And that's it. Like, that's all he says about meeting her. Other than to grumble that she studied too much and worked too hard over the next few years, he shares nothing about what her personality was like, what their conversations were like, what he actually liked about her as a person, nothing about them sharing values or interests or anything personality-wise. Like, it's all just very, very surface level. We're then introduced to Kelly, who is his affair partner, who is super duper different from Sarah because she wears her hair down, not in a tight bun, and she wears knee-high socks and no bra, not pencil skirts and blazers. Ooh. We also learn that Adam is creepy and violent as hell, and he tells us in such a nonchalant manner, it's really concerning. Obviously, the minute she walks in the door, they have sex, and afterwards, I drop her legs on the bed and walk into the bathroom, closing the door behind me. I can still hear her panting from the other side of the door, trying to regain control of her own breathing. She doesn't make a sound. I assume she's still lying there. I hope it's in ecstasy and not pain. Sometimes I take things too far. It's like I black out, and when I come to, I realise the error of my ways. I can't help myself. Kelly just does that to me. When I'm with her, my animal instincts take over. So we know he's inconsiderate because no aftercare, no snuggles, no, hey, how are you? How was that for you? You doing okay? He just drops her and walks away without checking in on her. Couldn't care less if she's experienced pleasure or pain. Doesn't give a damn. Doesn't even bother to ask. That's all concerning enough. And then we get the addition of him blacking out and taking things too far. Like, what the hell? And you can't be like, oh, it's her fault. She's just... No, this is your fault. Oh, I just have animal instincts. No, you're a monster. Do better. We learn that Kelly is aware that he has a wife. Sarah sends him some gushing texts about how great his writing is and how she's already read all the stuff that he's written today. So I know he wants to tell us that she's like super distant and she never pays him any attention, but clearly she does, because even with how much work she has to do, she's finding time to read his mediocre thousands of words that he writes every day. She's taken an active interest in his work and his job, which is more than he does for her. So honestly, at this point in the book, I don't see much of an issue with Sarah, you know? At this point, I was like, yeah, if I was her, and I found out he was cheating, I personally wouldn't kill someone, but in this fictional world, if I was her, I'd be like, yeah, this would make sense to do it, right? Plus, she's meant to be, like, smart and successful. If anyone's going to find out her husband's cheating, it's going to be her, right? Adam narrates, Sarah's career has always come first. Before me, before her family, before everything. I don't foresee that ever changing. I thought when we had kids she'd slow down, but she told me 5 years ago she didn't want kids. I thought I'd be able to change her mind. I couldn't. And mate, this is exactly why you actually talk to the person you're with and get to know them before you get married. If you spent a little less time objectifying her when she was 18 and a little more time asking about her core values, like, you know, if she wants kids or not, then maybe you wouldn't be in this mess. I think maybe I am biased because I am a child-free woman myself, but I actively hate any person, whether they're fictional or real, who believes they can change someone's mind about such a big personal decision as having kids. There's nothing wrong with him wanting kids, just as there's nothing wrong with her not wanting them. But that likely just means you're not compatible as a couple. It doesn't mean you propose to her and try and change her mind. I set down my phone on the dresser and plug it into the charger. I look over at Kelly, who's giving me bedroom eyes. She can never get enough of me and I can't get enough of her. But I know that won't always be true. There was a time that Sarah and I couldn't get enough of each other either. That time passed long ago. Occasionally those feelings resurface, but they're short-lived and usually induced by alcohol or time apart. And yeah, that's why you need more in a relationship than just lust, because lust doesn't last forever, and it won't always be at the same level. Lust changes depending on health and how tired you are and what else you have going on in your life. Like, lust is a wonderful thing, attraction is a wonderful thing, but it can't be the entire foundation of a relationship. Unsurprisingly, you actually need mutual respect, shared goals and values, friendship to actually enjoy each other's company. I don't think Adam realised this. It's wild. He's so immature. We learn that Kelly is also married and she has a husband, and she says, "Are you ever going to tell your wife about us?" And Adam retorts, "Are you ever going to tell your husband about us?" She huffs and folds her arms across her chest. It's not the same. Her words are quiet. In my script at this point, I was like, let me guess, her husband is an abuser, so she can't leave him, and she turns to Adam because something, blah, blah, blah. Not to downplay abuse and domestic violence, obviously, I am a survivor myself, but it just felt cliched to have this as, like, the excuse for cheating, you know? The way this part of the story is handled throughout this entire book, though, is frustrating and a little insulting. She leans into me, we sit there in silence, drinking our glasses of scotch, trapped in loveless marriages where we come second to the people we love. When Kelly and I are together, we come first. I refill our glasses twice more, then we have sex again. This time, I don't F her, I make love to her. I hate so much of the writing in this book. It's funny, when I first read through, I was like, you know what, I don't think it's as bad as people say. And now that I'm actually having to read some of the lines out loud, I'm like, yeah, no, a lot of them are really bad. Back to Sarah's chapter, and she's at work in her big fancy office. She has an assistant called Anne who does photography for fun. In my original script, I was like, I bet that'll be relevant later. It is. And this is where I came up with my first theory of the book, right? If Sarah's not the murderer, because that's the obvious choice, my new theory is that Anne is. Anne seems super, super dedicated to Sarah, like kind of obsessed with her. She's worked for her for 5 years, and I'm thinking she discovered Adam cheating because she accidentally took photos of Adam and Kelly together. So, being super duper loyal to her boss, she either kills Kelly herself, or she hires someone to go out and kill Kelly. Or she hired someone to kill Adam and they got Kelly by mistake. I'm not sure. But I think, like, my theory was Anne discovered the affair taking photos, then she kills Kelly. Kelly's not dead yet at this point in the story, but we know it's going to happen, so we can theorize, right? But my number one theory is still Sarah's done it, and she's making herself look busy in the office, so she's got an alibi. But if it's not her, then it's her assistant. Sarah decides to go out for a drink with Anne, And I was like, yeah, she's definitely given herself an alibi, right? Back to Adam's chapter. Or she's given them both an alibi because they're in it together. I don't know. Either way, this feels like an alibi. Back to Adam's chapter. The slam of a car door wakes me from my slumber. It's pitch black inside and outside, and I don't have the slightest clue how my night ended with Kelly, but I assume it was with more rough sex, since my penis feels like it's been dragged along a slab of pavement. That's not sexy. I glance at the clock on the nightstand, and in large red illuminating digits, it reads 12:15 a.m. F, I whisper. I should have been home with Sarah by now. I rub my hands over my forehead and down my face, trying to massage the nerves back to life. How the hell did I get this bad? I can't see more than a few inches in front of my face, but I can feel Kelly next to me. I can always feel her next to me. I scooch close to her, running my hand along her cheek. She's dead asleep. I whisper her name, trying to stir her, but the scotch has a stronger pull on her than it did me. So they're both drunk, both passed out, although I'm betting she's dead at this point, right? I'm thinking maybe the scotch they were drinking was drugged, and that's what made them pass out and why you can't remember. I don't know, that's the obvious thing, right? He gets up, and for whatever reason, he decides to look through Kelly's phone. Someone called Jessie has texted her with the line, "I'm sorry," and Adam assumes this is a woman, but I was like, it's spelt like the male version of Jessie, so I'm pretty sure it's a man. But anyway. Then there's a bunch of threatening messages from her husband saying things like, "Why does it have to be like this? Babe, will you answer me? I love you so effing much. Why can't you get that? I didn't mean any of it. You have to believe me. It won't happen again, I promise. Please tell me where you're at. If you would just answer, I would leave you alone tonight. F you, you effing dumb bum bitch. You effing lied to me. You're not still at work. I just called the cafe. When I find you, you'll be begging for last night's ordeal rather than what I have in store for you, you worthless bitch. Too late. You're an effing memory now." So she has made him abusive to try and get us to sympathise with Kelly and justify her having an affair, and I guess set him up as a suspect. Obviously, I feel for her. Like I say, as someone who's been in a relationship like this myself, it's awful. No one deserves to go through that. I just don't necessarily like it being used to legitimise cheating, and I don't like the way it's dealt with in the rest of this book. And I don't like the lack of resolution on this part either, but we'll get there. That's the final text message from Scott, the husband, at 11:45 p.m. Jesus Christ, what an effing psycho. I want to pick her up out of that bed and hold her close and reassure her that we're not all pieces of poop like her husband. Adam, are you serious? He goes on to grope Kelly in her sleep and finds her thighs wetter than they've ever been. So he just wipes whatever wetness he felt on his leg and just leaves her there. Clearly, this is going to turn out to be blood, right? And I was like, oh yeah, so this is going to be like what damns him to get convicted. They're going to find blood on his jeans. He's cuddled up close to her, so he's probably going to be covered in blood. But none of this ever comes up again. It's forgotten about. They don't mention any of this. And I'm like, you've made it a big deal. I'm thinking this was going to be what got him arrested and convicted. But no, it's never even mentioned. He leaves her a note saying, "Kelly, it's you. It hasn't always been you. But it will always be you." Sorry, but if a man used that line on me, I'd be like, get out now. This gets worse as well. "You're the words to a story I've been trying to write my whole life. And tonight, I determined the ending." And actually, no, it gets worse again. "Love you, love me, Adam. P.S. The maid will be here at 9 a.m. Please make sure you're gone before then." He's the worst man. He is absolutely the worst man. He leaves. It's about 1/2 after midnight. It's a weird way of saying it's 12:30. He goes home to his wife, and he immediately objectifies her while she's asleep as well, because this is what he does. He just sees women as objects. I push the door open and find her sleeping heavily on her stomach, completely relaxed. She's wearing a thin black tank top and black lace thong panties, not her typical nighttime attire. I expected to see her in a nightgown. Is she teasing me? Does she want me? Or did she just pass out from one too many vodka sodas? Her drink of choice. Her silk-like blonde hair is damp and pulled back in a low ponytail. Every strand neatly in place. Even when she's asleep, she's perfectly pulled together. My eyes follow the curve of her back and the smoothness of her toned bum down her sculpted legs. Over the years, she may have neglected me, but she's never ignored that body of hers. She stirs a little but doesn't wake. By my side of the bed, I shuffle off my pants and shirt. My eyes never leave her. She makes me so goddamn miserable, but so blissful at the same time. I effing hate her as much as I love her. Does she know? Does she care? What am I to her? Mate, just break up already. Just break up already. Also, I don't think the author knew how to write what their feelings actually were for each other, because it's all so contradictory and back and forth throughout the entire book, so makes no sense. Sarah wakes up briefly. The silence stretches, and I wonder what it is she's thinking. Is she mulling over case files in her head? Is she thinking about me? About us? Can she see the cracks in our marriage? Does she want to fix them, or keep pretending like they don't exist? Like I don't exist. Like we don't exist. Like, just have a conversation with each other. All of this could be solved if you just talked. You know, communicate, you're adults. Sarah then says, "Let's have a baby." Her eyes brighten and she looks up at me, waiting for my reaction. I can't help it. My face lights up and I grin back at her. Are you serious? Are you sure you're really ready? After everything that, well, happened, I thought you'd never want to have kids. I examine her face for any indication that would betray the words coming out of her mouth. I'd always hoped she'd want to have children, but I had accepted that that day might never come, given what happened to her. Yes, she nods, and I think she means it. I let out a laugh mixed with a cry. I kiss her. I can't contain my excitement. Then they have sex. Even though he's just been having sex all night with Kelly, and apparently his penis is really, really sore, and he hasn't even showered afterwards, and he's probably all sweaty and gross and smells like her, and has her vaginal fluid all over his penis. Now he's just gonna shove that in his wife. That's a bit gross. In my original script, I wrote, this better just be a part of her plot to frame him for murder, because if she's serious, I feel the author's doing a massive disservice to child-free women. And having read the book and finished it, I still have conflicting feelings about this, but we'll cover that at the end. And then I explode inside her. I'm going to be a father, I think. A single tear rolls from my eye as I collapse on top of her, breathless and hopeful. I can't do this to her. I have to end it with Kelly. Sarah's my wife, my family, my whole heart. She's done nothing but love me. Even when it's at a distance, she has loved me. I roll off but stay lying next to her. I rub her stomach gently. Sarah is the mother of my unborn child. She deserves more, and I'm going to give her that. No, and I'm going to give that to her. And sorry, but I find this so disrespectful that a man can't respect a woman and stay faithful and be a decent person, unless she's actively being an incubator for him. Like, I hate this so much. Sarah opens her chapter with, Adam sleeps deeply next to me. I smile and run my hand along his face, wondering if I'm doing the right thing. But that's the thing about right and wrong. It's subjective. He deserves this, I remind myself as I run my hand over my belly, hoping our efforts took. Like, okay, so she's definitely framing him for murder, right? Like, he deserves this. Like, that line just says that's what she's doing. Because if it's not this, I'll be genuinely shocked. I think the running a hand over her stomach thing is just a red herring. Because if you look at one of the first things she ever said in the very first page, on the very first page of chapter 1, I consider calling it all off at that moment. Like, come on, if that's not her setting up the murder and thinking about it and, like, gonna frame him for murder, then I don't know what is. Like, it's all very obvious in the first chapter. That's my theory. She says, I had the epiphany a week ago, and last night when I was having drinks with Anne, it was solidified. I want more out of this life than a title and my name on a building. I want love. I want family. I want meaning. And at this point I was like, ew, right? Because again, sorry, this is my personal bias showing, and I'll admit that. Some people don't like when I put my own, like, opinions and stuff in here, and they think I should be like, oh no, but think about it. I'm like, no, I'm allowed to have, like, a very personal opinion about how, like, something makes me feel, but I hate this idea that you can't be fulfilled and happy and loved or have family or meaning in your life if you don't have kids. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I mean, I also want love and family and meaning, right? But I don't need to have a baby to get any of that. And I hate the narrative that a kid is the only way you can. Like, I really do. Also, again, I don't think she's necessarily talking about, like, having a baby with Adam here. Like, in my original notes, I was like, this idea that I had the epiphany a week ago when I was having drinks with Anne, that to me says that her and Anne came up with this plan together to, like, kill Kelly and frame him for murder. That's my thought. That's my theory at this point, right? So Sarah is texting Anne, the assistant, to check she got home okay after they had drinks last night, and she says there was a moment last night where it got a bit weird, and I was like, okay. Thing is, that's never explained. Like, right up to the end of the book, that is never explained. So, God knows what that was. I had my theories about what it was, but, like, later in the book, but no, it's never explained. It's just left hanging. At work, Adam has sent Sarah flowers with a note saying, "It's always been you." But then Sarah's super handsome and super successful old college friend Matthew shows up, and he mocks her for wanting a baby with Adam because Matthew crosses one leg over the other and leans forward. "I just have this theory that animals and babies are knickknacks of our lives. Nice to look at and fun to collect, but they serve no real purpose." "That's awful," Anne says with disgust. "But is it? Why add burdens that slow you down? If anything, I'm an altruist, looking out for Sarah's best interest. I told you you didn't want to know. I love everything about Matthew except that." I take a seat on my desk next to Matthew. I pat his knee. It's his only flaw. I laugh. "And that I'm gay," he adds with a chuckle. Can't deal with this. I can't. Also, thinking about it now, if I'm right, Matthew has kids by the end of the book. There's a time jump at the end of the book and he has kids then, so yeah. I guess the author's really going with this narrative of that, like, everyone changes their mind and wants kids eventually, which is gross. Also, note that the author had to make Matthew gay because she can't just have men and women being platonic friends in a book. No, it has to be sexual or they're gay. Sarah explains her apparent change of mind. "I don't know. I've never wanted kids before. My childhood was less than ideal." Matthew nods along to my words. "But it just hit me when I was sitting at this cafe last week. I saw this woman pushing her baby in a stroller, and I had this pang of jealousy, like a need for a child of my own. And now I think it might be too late, I confess." Ah yes, let's perpetuate the myth that all women just suddenly and irrationally get broody one day and then regret that they haven't popped out 10 babies by the time they were 18, yeah? And I was like, let's do the maths here, because based on when they met, she's going to be 31 or 32, except she's not. The book makes her 33. But even if she is 33, that's not old. That's not too late. She won't, like, Anne goes on to say there are fertility programs and adoption. You won't need them at 33. Well, you might do if you already have, like, fertility issues. But for the average person, you're not going to need that. Like, And, right, she even says, "I'm 33 years old. Like, do I even have the energy to be a mum anymore?" As someone who is turning 33 in a couple of months, it is not old. Can we just stop? I say that's someone with no energy at all, but that's because of my health issues, not my age. And that's because of my uterus being absolutely horrific. But it's been like that my whole life. It's just getting worse as I get older. But again, not an age thing, health thing. 33 in general is not old. Like, I'm not helping myself here, am I? Adam's next chapter is incredibly infuriating. Well, Adam is just infuriating. "Sarah's gone when I open my eyes. For the first time in a long time, I wake up feeling good. Like everything is going to be okay. Sarah finally wants what I want. A family. We're on the same page. All this time I've been several chapters ahead of her, and now she's caught up. I hope she'll take a step back from the firm and focus on starting a family. I have a feeling what we did last night took, and in 9 months we'll be welcoming a baby Morgan to the world. That's what I was meant to be. A father." Like, I hate this fictional man. I really do. And why do I feel like he's the type of man who, despite not even actually working himself, wouldn't actually do any of the parenting or childcare, and he'd still expect Sarah to work, pay all the bills, and do the bulk of the childcare? You just know he's that type of man, don't you? Anyway, a sheriff and a deputy knock on his door and they want to know where he was last night. He doesn't answer them, so in typical police fashion, they resort to physically restraining him. "Mr. Morgan, try and remain calm," Sheriff Stevenson says. "F this, I'm calling my wife." I pull my phone from my pocket and try to throw the door closed. Sheriff Stevens stops it with his foot, and he and Deputy Hudson push inside. "Get the hell out of my house." 2 men in uniform charge forward and grab me. They throw both my arms behind my back. My cell phone drops to the floor just before I complete my call. I struggle. I know whenever you see people struggling against the cops, you always think as a spectator, "What an idiot. Don't fight the police. You'll never win that battle." But when you find yourself in that situation, when you have no idea what's going on, whether the ones you love are okay or why this is happening, you fight like hell. I throw Sheriff Stevens to the ground and get my arm free. The sheriff mumbles something like, "You penis," under his breath and stands back up, charging at me. Deputy Hudson still has one of my hands behind my back. "All right, I've had enough of this bull poop." Deputy Hudson brings a knee to my face. I drop instantly to the ground. Blood sprays from my nose into a puddle beneath me on the floor. Deputy Hudson drives his knee into my back while the sheriff handcuffs me. "You just had to do that, didn't you?" Sheriff Stevens says with a chuckle and a look of disappointment. "I miss getting a little dirty," Deputy Hudson says with a grin, I assume, as I can't see his face. Deputy Hudson stands, brushing himself off. They pull me to my knees. "Are you ready to come down to the station now, you piece of poop?" I spit blood at his feet. "F you, you're going to regret that," I glare at him. I would say that escalated quickly, but you know what? The casual police violence is sadly one of the most realistic parts of this book. I might have more sympathy if this was happening to anyone other than Adam, though. They let him stew in an interrogation room for 2 hours and he still has no idea why he's there. And then when they finally come in, they ask him where he was last night and who he was with, and it immediately gets overdramatic so quickly. What's this got to do with anything? I want my lawyer right now. I'm not answering anything else until I know what's going on and why the hell I'm here. I stand up, kicking back my chair and shaking the table. The cups of coffee spill, and 2 of the deputies immediately charge into the interrogation room, restraining me. Deputy Hudson stands quickly, flinging his chair back. He charges at me, grabbing me by the neck. His eyes bulge and his lips purse as he comes within 2 inches of my face. "Listen up, you little poop. Kelly Summers was stabbed to death in your bed. Perhaps you want to start telling us what really happened, because with the amount of evidence stacked against you, your days are effing numbered." He pushes me against the wall as Sheriff Stevens pulls him off, telling him to cool it. "I'm not going to effing cool it. Kelly was a good girl. She was family, and this white-collar piece of poop comes into town and kills her. F this guy." Deputy Hudson spits. Drops of sweat accumulate at his hairline. What are you talking about? Kelly? She was fine when I left." I sputter, choking on my own words. How? How did this happen?" I collapse. The room spins and spins. The deputies let me fall to the ground as they take a step back. I'm sorry, but I just can't take any of this seriously. Like, when it's just these over-emotional little boys with too much testosterone shouting at each other like they're toddlers and, F this, F that, swear, like, I can't take it seriously. I can't. Men, they're just so emotional. "Her husband. It had to be her husband. Check her phone, check her texts," I plead, trying to put all the pieces together, trying to make sense of it. Don't you effing talk about her husband." Deputy Hudson points his finger right at my face. I felt like this was just so unbelievable. Like, this deputy guy clearly knew Kelly and her family, so surely they wouldn't actually let him work this case, right? Clearly he's invested in this. Like, the level of police violence would not be allowed. Like, it just, well, I don't know, maybe it would, but it shouldn't be allowed. It feels very unbelievable. We go back to Sarah's chapter where we find out that she is working on a big case, which is defending a senator accused of raping a young woman, which is a choice, isn't it? I think that says a lot about Sarah and her character, and and this author, to be honest, because she doesn't do anything to actually punish any of the men accused of hurting women in this book. Kind of one instance, but not really. We'll discuss it at the end, don't worry. Cut back to Adam, he calls for his mummy for help. Cut back to Sarah, she's drinking champagne to celebrate helping an accused rapist go free. Again, it's a choice. Adam's mum manages to get in touch with Sarah and tells her to go to the police station. She does. She talks to the sheriff. She makes this comment about the lake house, saying, "I've rarely been there. Anne's spent more time there than I have. She spent a week there this past summer as part of her Christmas bonus. 1 week paid time off at my lake house. It was nice she had the opportunity to use it for what we had intended it for, vacation." So, new crazy theory at this point. Anne and Adam also had an affair, and he dumped her for Kelly, so she got revenge by drunkenly stabbing Kelly, and now Sarah's helping her cover it up. That's one of my theories. Or this was when Anne saw and found out about Amy and Kelly cheating, but then I was like, no, that wouldn't make sense, because why would Adam be at the house when Anne is using it? That doesn't make sense. So I'm going with my fair theory for now. And I will say this. and I wrote this in my original script, right? As much as I'm hating on these characters, I'm enjoying coming up with the most ridiculous theories possible. So far, Matthew, the gay friend, and Adam, the husband, are the only ones I don't actually suspect of this murder. And Adam's mum as well. She doesn't have it in her. But so far, I'm open to everything. Sarah, Anne, they're my top two suspects. Could also be the sheriff, could be the angry deputy, could be the husband, Scott, could be Jesse, the guy on the text. Any of them are options. When the police ask Sarah if she knew Kelly, she says no, but we do get this line of internal dialogue. Mrs. Morgan, do you know a Kelly Summers? No. I let out a deep breath. Maybe she's our cleaning lady? No, that's not her name. I shake my head, adding to my resounding no. So, she's thinking this to herself. Doesn't recognise the name. Maybe she's our cleaning lady. No, that's not her name. This isn't something she's saying out loud to other characters. This is her internal dialogue. She's thinking to herself. She's telling the audience she's thinking to herself. So, if Sarah is the murderer, this is her straight up lying to the audience just for the sake of the author having a twist later on. And if that's the case, I hate it when authors do this. So based on this line alone, because I'm trying to have faith in Jeneva Rose's writing, I'm going to go with Sarah does not currently know who killed Kelly and didn't do it herself. Because if Geneva's a good author, she wouldn't just straight up lie to the audience for no reason. She wouldn't have Sarah lying to herself like this. It makes no sense. However, if Geneva's a terrible author, Sarah's still a suspect. So, as of now, I'm still trying to have faith in Jeneva, and my theory is Anne killed Kelly, and Sarah's going to find out later and help her cover it up. The sheriff shows Sarah crime scene photos of Kelly's body at the lake house. Sarah's shocked, she pukes, and then she narrates, "Then it hits me. Now I know why I'm here." See, again, if she already knew, this would be a straight up lie, so I don't know. I hope Sarah's not the killer, and this is like genuine, because if Sarah is the killer, then Geneva's just a terrible writer. So this chapter ends with Sarah saying that she is Adam's lawyer, and I am surprised she's allowed to do this when surely she would be a suspect too. No? Like, they didn't even bother to interview her before they allowed her to do this. They didn't check her alibi. They're just like, oh, well, if she's a lawyer, she must be innocent. Like, no, it's silly. It feels like a massive oversight on their part and a massive plot hole. Adam's chapter is next, and it's just him crying and self-pitying for pages. I can't deal with this. Every Adam chapter feels so useless because not that much happens in them unless he's just wallowing in self-pity or being angry. Like, for the whole book. Moving back to Sarah, and she says, I composed myself in the bathroom prior. I'm no longer here as Adam's wife. I'm his lawyer. I'm Sarah Morgan, top criminal defense attorney. I must remind myself of that every minute or so. I have to be the strong and proficient woman I am. I know Adam didn't do this. I honestly can't believe that he would even be capable of hitting someone, let alone killing a person. But I also thought he would never cheat on me. And, as the sheriff's investigation shows, he has been, for at least a year, with this Kelly woman. I shake my head in disgust thinking about it. I can't believe it. I don't believe it yet. Not until Adam admits it to me. He couldn't have done any of this. So he could never hit someone, but he's been repeatedly blacking out and having violent sex, in quotation marks, for all his adult life. Sure, I believe you. Also, again, this is just kind of annoying because this book relies on the author just lying to the audience constantly and making stuff up. Like, a good thriller with a good twist at the end, right? You can then go back and reread the book and be like, crap, the clues were there all along. Like, this is amazing. I didn't see it, but now I do. And with this new context, I can read it and see it in a whole new light. That's a good twist ending. Like, okay, as an example, not a book one, but, well, actually, I was going to say Shutter Island, which did start as a book, although I admit I have not read the book yet, so that's on me. But if you just take the film, for example, and you watch Shutter Island, and spoilers here, you get to the end and realise that he was a patient all along. You can then go back and rewatch the film and be like, crap, all the clues were there, this made complete sense, and it gives you a whole new perspective on it. This book doesn't do that, because when you get to the end and you learn the twist, you're like, oh, none of this makes sense. Like, I'm rereading some of this now and I'm like, this doesn't make sense in the apparent context. Like, this narrator is just straight up lying to herself I guess, to the audience, like the author's just lying and making stuff up, and that doesn't lead to a good twist. That just means that, like, your whole book is nonsense. It's really annoying. He gives me a sympathetic look and nods. I'm sure by now he knows exactly who I am. When I walked out the bathroom, Sheriff Stevens had a new respect for me. I'm sure he Googled me and found that I was not just some lowly house... Oh, the misogyny. He looked at me with compassion and admiration. Maybe he thinks I'm crazy to stand behind Adam, but Adam is my husband. Yeah, but if your husband's a murderer, I don't really care if he's your husband or not. Like, maybe this is a flaw with me. Maybe this is a me problem. But I don't find unconditional love and support for your spouse to be admirable. Like, when Anna Duggar stayed loyal and supportive to Josh Duggar, and this is real life, not fiction, obviously. You know, Josh Duggar, I've got a whole video on him, but he was the eldest of the 19 kids and counting lot, the Duggar family. And Josh was found to have had thousands of images and videos of child sexual assault material, and he assaulted his own sisters when they were children. And his wife Anna just blindly supports him and stands by him. And I personally don't find that admirable in the slightest. I find it disgusting. Like, you don't just blindly support someone doing terrible things just because you're married to them. Like, if they're a child predator, they're still a child predator, whether they're your husband or not. And I think at that point they don't deserve your love and respect and support. Same with, like, you know, if he's murdered someone, like, just because he's your husband, it doesn't erase the crime, does it? I feel like, again, like, Sarah's motivations don't make sense because she's just like, well, he's my husband, I have to do this. Like, if she genuinely thought he was innocent, then I can see her supporting him and defending him and whatever. But all she ever says is like, oh, well, you know, he's my husband. He's my husband. I gotta do it because he's my husband. And it doesn't make sense. We get told some of the details of the case. Kelly was found at 9:15 a.m. by the cleaner, in the lake house, obviously. She was in bed and had been stabbed 37 times in the neck, chest, and torso. She had no defensive wounds on her. Like, that's an angry murder, right? And she must have been passed out when it happened, so I'm still going with the Scotch was drugged theory. There's more graphic details of kind of what happened to her, but I will spare you the details of them for now because YouTube. Adam is pounding on the other side of the one-way mirror. He seizes a chair and throws it. It bounces off and hits the ground with a thud. He screams and then collapses to the floor in a puddle of anguish. Oh yeah, this man wouldn't hurt anyone, would he? I turn back to Sheriff Stevens. My mouth drops open and my eyes widen. I've never seen Adam react like that. I've never seen him do more than raise his voice. I've never seen him enraged. Maybe he could be violent. Oh, you think? Even in the state that he's in, though, now, like, you know, angry and upset and throwing chairs, Adam still manages to stop and pause for a second to sexualize and objectify Sarah's appearance. God's sake. Let's skip over it, though, now for our own peace of mind, because I don't want to read that rubbish. Instead, let's skip to the bit where he says, she's looking at me as if she doesn't know me. Her gaze dances around me. She's assessing me, questioning me. She's treating me like I'm a client? Sarah? There's a little aggression in my voice. I don't mean it, but I don't like the way she's looking at me. How can she even question that I would do something like this? How can she act like she doesn't know who I am? I'm her husband. It's only when reading it aloud I realise just how repetitive this book is. And not in like a, oh, this is a good use of repetition kind of way, but in a, oh god, this gets quite boring, doesn't it? It's like the author doesn't know any other kind of sentence structure. But as for Adam, yeah, of course she's looking at you like this. Maybe because she's just found out you've been cheating on her with a woman in the house that she paid for, in the bed that she paid for, on your anniversary with her, and now this woman's dead. I think her looking at you a little like, don't know if I recognised you, is far more fair than you actually deserve. I stare at her in disbelief. Why are you defending me? After what I did to you? Like, that's not a full sentence. After what I did to you, ? Is not a full sentence. Why are you defending me after what I did for you is, but the writing is so poor. Because when I said till death do us part, I meant it, and I'm the only person that has any chance in hell of getting you off. There's ice in her voice, and rightfully so. Yeah, see, I'm not into this. I just, I mean, her reasons become a little clearer by the end of the book, but, like, the reasons she's giving now don't make any sense. You can't believe this stuff, so it's just frustrating to read. Next up, we get a chapter of Adam reminiscing about how he met Kelly 18 months ago, and mostly it's just him comparing Kelly to Sarah, which, again, I find gross. Can we not compare women like this, please? Kelly caught my eye immediately. It was the light of the uncovered hanging light bulbs playing off the sparkle of her blue eyes and her carefree attitude that grabbed me like two strong hands around my throat, and it wouldn't let go. She was working the patio, so I decided to take a seat out there. Every fibre of my being just wanted to know her, who she was, what she liked, what made her, her. I didn't just want to be in her presence, I needed it. She's working in a cafe, by the way, that's where we met her. She was captivating, every part of her. Maybe it was the loneliness that made her much more appealing, or perhaps it was that she seemed nothing like Sarah. Sarah is a calculating type A personality through and through. Sarah's always put together no matter where she is or how she's dressed, whether in pyjamas or in a $2,000 business suit on her way into work. But then there was Kelly, imperfectly perfect. Her freckles splattered across her face, her long brown hair flowing around her shoulders in the warm summer breeze. She occasionally tried to tame it, but as soon as she waited on tables, she, for the most part, would let it do its thing while she did hers. Her apron was haphazardly tied around her tiny waist. Her breasts were full and uncaged under her white tee. Her nipples were prominent and slightly visible, but she didn't care. She carried herself most unapologetically, smiling and laughing around the patio area. So there you go. Sarah, if you just let down your hair a bit more and show your nipples in public, he wouldn't have had to cheat on you, you silly goose. It's ridiculous. I stayed there all morning. It was an hour later that she asked me what I was working on. I told her in detail about my writing. It was 2 hours later that I learned about her life, her upbringing, her hopes, her dreams. It was 3 hours later that she took her break. She sat with me and chatted, and it was then that she told me about him, Scott, her husband. And I find it interesting that within 2 hours of meeting her, he'd apparently asked her more questions and learned more about her than he did during the entire first 8 years of his marriage with Sarah. Wild. Sorry, not first 8 years of his marriage. First 8 years of his relationship. First 5 years of marriage. But apparently, just like with Sarah, Adam got up to leave the cafe and she asked to see his home because he's just apparently irresistible to women. And when I closed the door to the lake house, she jumped into my arms. We'd ripped at each other's clothes and effed right there on the floor of the living room on the bearskin rug in front of the unlit fireplace. We effed 3 times that afternoon. She couldn't get enough of me and I couldn't get enough of her. Like heroin. She was addicting right from the first taste, the first high. And I never came down from that high until today. Yeah, sure, you're so irresistible that 2 women who just met you, just, the minute you're alone with them, just have to rip off their clothes and rip off your clothes because you're just, ooh, what a amazing man. I don't even have words. Part of me was thinking at this point in the book, like, maybe he's just really delusional. Maybe what's actually happening is that, like, he's been, like, stalking and raping these women and he thinks that they're all over him, but actually, like, he's a rapist stalker and he's just that delusional. And I was like, that would be a good twist. But no, apparently we're just meant to believe that he's that irresistible to women. Back to Sarah's narration, and he leans back in his chair and slides his hands down his face, pulling at his skin that seems to have paled from lack of sleep, grief and stress. His eyes are bloodshot and a 5 o'clock shadow has taken up residence on his face. Despite what he has done and his appearance, he's still handsome to me. I can see why Kelly couldn't resist him. I couldn't resist him either. Like, come on. In my original notes, I was like, are we sure this isn't some fantasy written by a man? I feel like Jeneva Rose just wanted to write a thriller, but she was told that smutty romance was currently popular and selling well. So she just, like, shoehorned in these random lusty lines everywhere and awkward sex scenes. And it feels really jarring and unnecessary. And I'm like, why is this even in the book? It's stupid. It takes me right out of it. Sarah narrates, the problems in our marriage were just as much his fault as they were mine. I did everything I could. I bought him an effing house to help with his writing career, and instead he used it to wine and dine and eff another woman. Stop. I can't think like this. I don't know if I can separate myself from this. I just need time to think. I have to take a step back. And she's right though, isn't she? Honestly, like, this is how I'd be feeling in this situation. Just to add more drama in here for the sake of it, she stands up to have a little pace around the room and she's immediately knocked to the floor and slams her head against the table as another deputy aggressively slams open the door to the room. This is Kelly's husband, Scott. So, like I say, turns out he's a police officer. And again, this is not surprising to me that he was like an abusive piece of crap to Kelly, apparently. And his colleagues are trying to like pin her murder on some other man as quickly as possible. Like, no, I mean, obviously, like, not all police officers, we know this. I've known some lovely police officers in the UK who helped me when I was struggling with a domestic violence situation, and they've been wonderful. However, statistically, police officers can be quite dangerous. Numerous studies across the UK and America, as just a couple of examples, have found higher rates than usual of committing domestic violence amongst male police officers, but a considerably lower conviction rate. So a 2022 study, for example, found that in the UK, 80% of police officers accused of domestic violence were still allowed to keep their jobs, never mind face any kind of legal consequences. That is absolutely horrifying. So I will say this part of the story seems to be founded in reality, even if its actual on-page portrayal is overly dramatic. I can believe that Kelly's husband, Scott, the police officer, is abusive and violent and aggressive and allowed to get away with it by his colleagues. He is in the scene allowed to beat up Adam, like, badly, and seriously injure Sarah before anyone intervenes. And the other deputy as well, Deputy Hudson, he's already beat up Adam and, like, smashed in his nose. So, yeah. But despite all this, it's okay, because we're told that, unlike these two, the sheriff's different. He's one of the good guys. I don't think Sheriff Stevens wants to just pin this on Adam and call it a day, even though it would be quite easy to do. I think he wants to help me find out who really did this. It's completely unorthodox, but at the end of the day, my focus is on defending Adam, whether he did it or not, and Sheriff Stevens' focus is finding the person who did this. He doesn't care about closing this case quietly, he cares about closing it correctly. I didn't believe this, but again, reading it back now, like, so many of these lines are just Sarah and the author lying straight up to the audience, and not in a way that makes sense. It's very frustrating. I feel like you can get away with characters lying to the audience in their narration if, like, there's a reason for the narration that would allow the lying. Does that make any sense? I don't know. But, like, so let's say, like, the narration is actually, like, them writing a letter to someone or an email, or they're being interviewed and we're hearing that narration, they're telling a story. Then there would be a reason for them to lie to the audience. You know what I mean? There would be a reason for lying in the narration. But because this is just meant to be like a stream of consciousness, like, Sarah's not actually speaking to an audience here. She's just narrating. This is her story in her head, just like living it out. There is no reason for her to lie, and yet she repeatedly does in her narration. That is just poor writing, and it makes for a really, really frustrating book. Sheriff Stephen nods and leans back in his chair again. This is a bit unconventional, but I'd like to take you to the crime scene. I want you to tell me what you see. I'd like that, I say without hesitation. Yeah, great idea. Take one of your main suspects, who is the lawyer to one of your other main suspects, to an active crime scene. Great idea. In the next chapter, the sheriff visits Adam in hospital, and Adam is like, Scott did it, as in the murder. And the sheriff goes, I've never liked Scott, the sheriff admits. You heard me. I shouldn't tell you that. I know that. But to me, something's always been off about Scott. He has too much of an all-American boy persona in this town, and I've learned that everyone has skeletons in their closet, and that the people who appear to be good are usually the worst of them all. He leans back in his chair. So, new theory, just for funsies, the sheriff killed Kelly to frame Scott just because he had an irrational grudge against him, you know, for funsies. Okay, maybe that's not a serious theory, but I like being ridiculous with this. It's part of the fun. Later, the sheriff calls Sarah, and he's like, hey, call me Ryan. And it goes like this. I hear him let out a sigh. Whether it's a sigh of relief or a sigh of frustration, I don't know. Sarah, I don't know you that well, but if Adam did this, I'm just here to find out the truth and enact the proper justice. If Adam didn't do this, the same is still true. I'm here for you in a professional manner and a friendly manner. I guess what I'm trying to say is, I'm here for you regardless of what we uncover together. I'm just looking for the truth. And that's all he says, right? And apparently this is meant to be like, in the eyes of Sarah and the author, super duper flirtatious, and like him crossing a line and like him making a move on her, and I'm like, wait, did I just read the same thing, or what is happening? Like, yeah, he's like, I'm here for you, but I don't think that's over the top, flirty, being inappropriate. Like, listen to what comes immediately after this. I think I'm starting to understand Sheriff Stevens and where he's coming from, and although it's highly inappropriate and not something I'd ever entertain, I'm flattered. I'd like to tell him off and tell him how wrong what he said is, but I need him. I need his help. I can't just blow that off, but I'll keep this strictly professional. I appreciate that, Sheriff Stevens. He doesn't correct the name I call him by this time. He understands exactly what I'm saying. He understands that this, whatever this is between us, can't happen. And I was like, sorry, what do you mean whatever this is between us? Like, are you trying to make them have some sort of flirty thing here? Because I've not read any flirting. Like, this is stupid and inappropriate. And throughout the whole book, Jeneva tries to make out that these two have this, like, flirtation going on. And I'm like, but we never actually see any flirting. They have no chemistry. There's nothing. It's like the epitome of telling and not showing. We're never shown any of this flirtiness. We're never shown any of this closeness. We're never shown any of this chemistry. We're just told it's there. It's really damn bizarre. Next up, we get another flashback, and this is 2 weeks earlier with Adam. Ooh. Kelly turned up to the lake house unexpectedly while Adam was drunk, and she was bruised and bleeding and hurt. And Adam thinks this was clearly done by Scott. I'll tell you now, we never actually find out who did this to her. We never actually find out what happened. Really damn frustrating. Adam says that he and her can run away together, and she's like, no, there's things you don't know about me. And then she spills all. Nice little info dump here if you're ready for it. I was married before, and although we loved each other, we weren't always good to each other. And my name isn't really Kelly Summers. It's Jenna Way. I had to change it after what happened, after I was accused of killing my first husband. I didn't kill him. She paused. I gave her hand a small squeeze. She looked at me and continued. We had a fight earlier that day, which was the norm for us. Our relationship was full of passion, both good and bad. When I came home later that night, he was dead. He'd been stabbed to death. I was the primary suspect. I didn't do it, I swear. I love my husband, but I was charged with his murder. When some of the evidence was misplaced during the trial, the charges against me were dismissed. He helped me be free, but he owns me now. So really, I'm not free. I'm still paying for a crime I didn't commit. I'm still serving my sentence, not just in a jail cell, but with Scott. I know it won't end well for me, and I know the only way I'll be free is if he is out of the picture. She hung her head. So this is a whole new aspect of the case that I did not see coming. Basically, she gets arrested for her husband's murder. The guy investigating her is Scott, but somehow they fall in love during the investigation, and he helps hide evidence that gets her off, and then they get married. But now she feels like she owes him for life. So, let's come up with a whole new ridiculous theory. Are we thinking Scott was obsessed with Kelly, so he killed her husband so he could have her, and he then helped misplace evidence against her, and he's now holding that over her, so she's got to stay with him? But, right, first husband's family is still mad at her and thinks she killed him, so they've decided to get revenge by killing her in the same way that they think she killed the first husband, and that family member is Anne the receptionist. Adam and Sarah aren't even relevant to this story, just wrong place, wrong time. That's my theory. Again, what's frustrating is we don't ever actually find out who killed Kelly's first husband. That's never actually answered. Again, frustrating as hell for a thriller book. I think there are times in books when you can leave things open-ended and be like, oh my god, let's let the audience wonder about what happened here. Did this happen? Like, I think an open ending can be really good in some cases. Not in this case. Not in a thriller book like this. I think part of the satisfaction is getting the answers and, seeing the bad guys caught, at least for me. And it feels like the only reason we didn't get these answers is because the author couldn't be bothered to write them. you know? She just left so many things open and unanswered, and for no good reason. It's really frustrating. Back to the present day and Sarah. She tells Anne what is happening with everything, and Adam's mum shows up, and Sarah hates her. The thing is, like, the way she describes her and, like, writes about her and stuff, it's really unnecessary. And again, undertones of misogyny. First, it was the smell. The dead giveaway of the Chanel No. 5. So classic. So expected. This is matched with the monochrome outfit adorning her well-maintained figure. Not a shred of personality in her outward appearance, which itself tells you everything you need to know about her. Her features are hard and are kept in place by routine visits to a plastic surgeon, but the kind who does a superb enough job that only a well-trained eye can even tell that the skin isn't 100% natural. The entire entrance is punctuated by the final click of a black Manolo Blahnik heel. I can never say that name. Never Louboutins. Red is ostentatious. Announcing that she is here and ready for her proper allotment of attention, which by normal tally is all of it. Eleanor is not going to like hearing this. To her, Adam is a perfect specimen. He's all she has left of her deceased husband. Adam's father was a hedge fund manager, and 5 years ago he passed away unexpectedly from a heart attack. They say it was due to bad eating habits and the stress of the job, but I like to think Eleanor played a role. She is truly a demanding woman. However, for the sake of this case, I'll put our differences aside and continue to swallow each jab, insult, and condescending remark. It's just unnecessary, isn't it? There's no point arguing with her. Parents are typically delusional when it comes to their children. Even Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer had loving parents who were unaware of the evil that dwelled within their offspring. I don't think it's a great sign that you're comparing your husband to prolific serial killers. Just saying. You know, maybe not a good look. Anyway, she goes off to look around the crime scene with the sheriff, and I need people who know American law to correct me if I'm wrong, but when she gets there, he just, like, hands over everything to her, like a folder full of autopsy reports and DNA tests and crime scene photos and everything. Like, all the evidence they've just collected, he's like, here, take this. Like, one, she should be a suspect. She shouldn't be getting this stuff. And two, let's talk about her just as a lawyer for the second. Isn't there, like, a standard procedure in place for sharing evidence with the defense team? And, like, it has to go through, like, courts to be like, this is what's admissible in court and this is what you can have access to and look at and blah, blah, blah. Like, isn't there a standard procedure that is not this? Again, I know I don't know that much about the American legal system. All of my knowledge comes from, like, Law and Order SVU, if I'm being honest. But, and similar programs like that. But this just feels wrong and unprofessional and like it wouldn't actually happen. But again, actual experts, please let me know in the comments. Either way, we find out from this that Kelly had Rohypnol in her system. Odd. What about Adam? I ask, looking up at him. Did he have the same drug in his system? No, he says without hesitation. Did you test for it? I believe so, but I'll double check with the lab. See, this guy is dodgy as hell. I don't trust this sheriff at all. He's clearly, like, not done the test and he's just trying to pin it on, what's his name? Adam. And I'm like, is he trying to, like, cover for Scott or something like that? I don't know. We'll see. Either way, all that rubbish about, like, oh yeah, I truly believe he's just trying to find out who killed Kelly. I'm like, no, he's not, you silly goose. He's just trying to pin it on Adam, and this shows it. We also find out that Kelly was pregnant. Just 4 weeks pregnant, apparently, which actually means 2 weeks since conception, which is no time at all. That is going to be like a barely noticeable bundle of cells in there, right? And this 2 weeks ago is when Adam's flashback was. So I'm like, do we think the baby is Scott's? Do we think it's Adam's? I don't know. But it was probably conceived around the time of that flashback. But either way, it's far too early for her to have known she was pregnant. It's far too early for anyone else to have known she was pregnant. It wouldn't even, it might show up on a pregnancy test at this point, but it's very unlikely. So I don't think pregnancy was the motive for the murder, right? But apparently DNA tests show that it is Adam's baby. I'm not sure how they got these DNA results back so damn quickly, in less than 24 hours. But okay, sure. Let's suspend our disbelief here for the sake of the plot. Sarah narrates, I can't effing believe Adam got this woman pregnant. Did he know? Was he hiding it from me? Did she want money out of him, or was she going to tell me? One minute I'm confident Adam would never do this, and the next I'm not so sure. What the hell was he thinking? Like, of course he didn't know she was pregnant. She probably didn't even know she was pregnant. Like I say, technically some pregnancy tests can be super sensitive and give you results like a week to 10 days after conception. But they're expensive. They're not standard pregnancy tests. And most people aren't taking those or any kind of pregnancy test like every month for funsies unless they're actively trying to get pregnant. At 4 weeks pregnant, which is 2 weeks after conception, she might not have even missed her period yet, so she wouldn't know to test. Like, this is just stupid. Also, again, I'm sick of Kelly's... Sorry, not Kelly. God, there's so many names in this. And again, I'm really sick of Sarah's back and forth on like, oh, do we think Adam did this? Do we not? Do we me? Because it's just her straight up lying to the audience. Sarah reads some more evidence and finds out that Kelly had 24-plus-hour-old bruises on her body, and there was semen found in her. Some of it was Adam's, but there were also 2 more samples. We're hoping the phone records give us more insight into that. Maybe she was seeing someone else, maybe she was raped, and that's the real murderer. We're not sure. That's the sheriff saying that. Seeing someone else? That third set of DNA caught us by surprise too. He turns to me, raising one eyebrow. What's your theory? I lean back into my seat. He leans back too, getting a little more comfortable. Well, before finding the third set of DNA, I thought we might just have our man. But now Adam as the murderer doesn't sit well for me. I'll be honest, Adam didn't make sense before the DNA results. Why? It's too easy. See, this sheriff is dodgy as hell. 1 minute he's like, yeah, I don't think it's Adam, but then he's like not doing proper tests on his blood and checking for a hypnol and like being dodgy. It's just, none of this makes sense. Like, there's incompetence, but people's motives don't make sense. None of this makes sense. Also, at this point, I was like, we need to think about this Jessie person. The Jessie person who texted Kelly the I'm sorry while she was dying. Adam assumed it was a girl, but I think we can assume, based on the spelling and all of this, that it's a man, and I'm like, probably the third lot of semen, right? Inside the house, Sarah sees a bottle of scotch left open, and since Kelly had a high blood alcohol content and rohypnol, she goes. I look at the wet bar and notice the uncapped scotch decanter. I point to it. Was that tested? Sheriff Stevens walks a couple of steps from the kitchen into the open concept living room. Not that I'm aware. What should it be tested for? He's so dumb. He takes a few more steps and stands beside me. Well, if rohypnol was found in Kelly's body, maybe this is how it got in there. I put the cap back on the decanter. Sheriff Stevens rubs his chin. Good point, he says. When we're done here, I'll have Deputy Hudson do another once through. He pulls out a pen and a small notepad from his pocket and jots down a few things. So either this is the most incompetent police department, or this guy is covering something up. And why are you allowing her to just handle the evidence like this with her bare hands? Oh, it's so frustrating. In the bedroom, Sarah is shocked by the smell of blood, because apparently it's everywhere, which begs the question, why didn't Adam notice it the night that Kelly died? He woke up. None of this makes sense. He didn't shower or anything. Like, she was stabbed in the bed next to him. And we know, well, we can guess at this point, but we know later that he was next to her in the bed when she was stabbed. So how did he not get any blood on him? Why did he not smell the blood? Why? None of this makes any sense. Sarah thinks, would he have left me if she was still alive? The anger takes a hold of me and comes out in the form of tears. I don't cry when I'm sad, I cry when I'm angry. I turn towards Sheriff Stevens. He sees the tears and immediately wraps his arms around me, pulling me in for a comforting embrace. He rubs my back with one hand while the other strokes the back of my head. We stand there for a few minutes. He makes me feel less angry. He makes me feel like everything's going to be alright at this moment. He makes me feel like things can get better. I'm grateful that I forgot my place, even if only for a moment. Like, this is inappropriate. What the hell am I reading? Stop trying to make these two a thing. No, it's weird. Sarah looks over at Adam's desk and finds his handgun just like sitting in a drawer in the desk, right? And, well, poop. Can't say we would have found that, Sheriff Stevens remarks from beside me. Are you kidding me? Someone's just been murdered and your entire police department just miss a gun sitting in an unlocked drawer. Incompetent. It's ridiculous. In this drawer, she also finds compromising photos of Adam and Kelly together with a note saying, "End it or I will." Clearly a threat. And who do we know who likes to take photos? Anne. Told you, like, her showing off her, like, Instagram feed or whatever would come back, right? Told you. She's clearly caught them while just taking photos or, like, using the guest house or lake house or whatever. And now she's blackmailing them. Oh, and there was this line earlier that I forgot to mention where Sarah said to this guy Bob that she works with that the company only pays for half of Anne's salary. She personally pays the second half out of her own pocket. Very unusual, really weird. That's not normal at all. I reckon, theory time, it's because she's also hired Anne to be like a private investigator for her and stalk her husband. So I'm thinking Anne did that, Anne did the blackmailing, she got the photos, told Sarah, who is like, damn, better kill her. Easy, that's my theory. Although again, I have to ask, how did the police not find this? They are absolutely useless. There's a deputy who's been waiting outside the house and he shouts, "Hey, what's going on with you two? Is there a second affair going on that we should know about?" That's my deputy accent. I know it's very good. Anyway, that was Deputy Hudson, who he yells from the car. A large smile is plastered across his face as he smacks his chewing gum loudly in an obnoxious manner to punctuate the brazenness of his commentary. I'm snapped back into reality and a wave of questions cascades over me. Professionalism replaces empathy and our former roles reappear. Defense attorney, in the way sheriff's department. I don't like this storyline at all. He didn't even say this in regards to the hug. He said this in regards to them standing next to each other. Like, if they are flirting, it's inappropriate. But this whole thing is so poorly written that I haven't seen any flirting at all. There was that weird hug, but like, I don't know. It's all so poorly written. It doesn't make any sense. Well, I should probably get going. I need to stop by the hospital to check on Adam. I step away from Sheriff Stevens and walk towards my vehicle, glancing only for a second at Deputy Hudson. He smiles and nods at me. "I'll be seeing you," he says in a friendly manner, but it seems more like a threat. I know he's friends with Scott, the husband, but this just all feels weird, doesn't it? Back to Adam. He's in jail. He wallows in more self-pity. He says of another inmate, "The third one is reading a book at another table alone. The two at the table never look up at me as I enter and whisper to one another. The third guy never looks up. Must be a good book. It's probably not one of mine." Like, just shut up already and get a real job. Again, not that being an author in general isn't a real job, but he's not a successful one. He's not bringing in any money. His books aren't well received or liked by anyone. So, get a real job. Sarah shows up and she questions him a little bit. "There's a period of time you don't remember from that night?" She gives me a quizzical look. "I guess," I shrug. "You guess? You're being accused of murder, and you guess? Are you kidding me, Adam?" She drops her pen on her paper and massages her temples with the tips of her fingers. "Well, what the hell do you want me to say?" "I don't know, but it doesn't look good that you can't remember part of that night. The prosecution will easily turn that statement you just made into, well, if you can't remember, maybe you don't remember killing her. You need to remember. You need to be sure." Again, she has a point. And how is he just so calm about this? About not remembering whole periods of time? If I was just blacking out for periods of time, I'd be like, oh God, what's wrong with me? She also says to him, "I'm saying you weren't the only man she was cheating on her husband with. I'm saying you weren't special. I'm saying she was a whore." Sarah looks just as surprised as I do after the words leave her mouth. I'm torn between understanding where she's coming from. You know, she's feeling angry, she's upset, she's betrayed, she's lashing out. I'm torn between understanding that and feeling icky and not liking when women call other women names like whores. But I do also understand that in the heat of the moment, in situations like this, it can happen and slip out. So, difficult one. Adam learns Kelly is pregnant. Apparently this is his first time hearing about it, because of course it is. Even Kelly probably didn't know she was pregnant. If you wanted to make this more dramatic and introduce other potential suspects and motives for the murder, make her more weeks along in the pregnancy. Make her 8, 9, 10 weeks pregnant. Back to Sarah's perspective, and the chapter opens with, Anna walks into my office wearing a black pencil dress and her hair pulled up in a slicked back ponytail. Every day she looks a little bit more like me. See? She's obsessed with Sarah. I bet she's obsessed with her, got overprotective of her. She's the one who killed Kelly for her, maybe, or she hired someone to kill Kelly, or at least she's definitely doing the blackmail, and then she told Sarah, and Sarah killed them. I don't know, something like that. Definitely she's the blackmailing one, though, because she's the only one we know so far who ever takes photos of anything. And when she tells Anne about what was found, like the rohypnol, the pregnancy, the blackmail and everything, this is her response. Anne's eyes are wide. Her mouth opens and then closes. She doesn't know what to say. I don't even know what to say. She swallows hard and then brings the coffee to her lips, taking another sip. Are they testing anyone else? Anne crosses one leg over the other. She places the folder from her lap onto the desk. See? She finds out about the blackmail, and instead of saying anything or responding, she just goes straight back to talking about the third semen sample. That's what the testing comment was about, right? So I reckon she's definitely the blackmailer. Like, there's no other option. Sarah also confides in Anne that she thinks the sheriff is flirting with her. I think he's flirting with me. He told me he would be there for me regardless if. You mean of if. So poorly written. He told me he would be there for me regardless if Adam were convicted. Regardless of if Adam were convicted. Come on. And I think it's just the way he looks at me too. Maybe I need that right now. I think I do. Sheriff Stevens might just be the person I need right now. More than I know. That's really weird. Anne juts her nose. Is it though? Should I be worried? I should be, shouldn't I? Yeah, be worried. This is weird. I don't understand why she had to include this part of the plot at all. In a fun book, Anne would get overprotective of Sarah again, get jealous of this sheriff hitting on her, and then try and kill the sheriff too. I would like that to be the climax of the book. That would be a fun one. Okay, no, I did come up with another theory that was fun, right? The sheriff is Anne's secret dad, and he's acting incompetently to try and cover up the fact that she's the one who did the murder. See, that would make more sense than what actually happens in this book. Anyway, moving on, Sarah finds out about Kelly's real name and the murder charge, and that her arresting officer was Scott Summers, her husband. I think this is meant to be new information, but I guess we already knew it. We'd already figured that part out, even though Kelly never said it specifically. Like, it's fine. You know what, though? I will say, at this point in my original review of the book, I said this in my script. I am having more fun reading this book than anything Freida McFadden, Colleen Hoover, or Penelope Douglas, or any of that lot have ever written. I'm at least having fun coming up with like the most outrageous theories possible. And I also said this, I am finding the lack of decent or realistic police work frustrating, and I hate so many of the characters, and I do have the ick about a lot of things like the weird Sheriff Sarah flirting thing, and the dual perspective is a little annoying and forced at times because in some chapters nothing happens, but if you don't take the book too seriously at all and just let your imagination run wild, not hating it so far. I'm actually quite enjoying it. Now doing a reread, knowing what I know about the ending of the book, it's a little more frustrating because I'm seeing how poorly it's written, how poorly it was planned out, how few things actually make sense. It was fun to read along with, but on a reread, knowing the facts, it's just really, really bad. So that's a little more frustrating. But I do have to say, with all the crappy stuff going on in my life at the minute, with Kyra's health and my health and everything like that, like, I am actually really enjoying being able to make these, like, lighter, more fun videos about books that are just silly rather than, like, actually dangerous and harmful. You know, it's exactly what I need right now. I need this lightness. It's quite fun. It's all just harmless silliness, isn't it? Like, I'm being here getting frustrated calling it stupid and stuff, but in, like, a funny way where I can laugh at it, which is nice. And yeah, honestly, on my first read through, I did enjoy coming up with all the silly theories and being like, you know, Anne is the sheriff's secret daughter, that kind of ridiculousness. That's fun. I like that. So, yeah. And at least there was enough in here that I could come up with these ridiculous theories, which is more than you get in, like, say, a Colleen Hoover or Frida McFadden or something like that, where everything is just like very straightforward, you know? Right. We're only 37% of the way through the book, so there's still time for everything to change, and I'm kind of here for the chaos, so let's do it. Adam's mum visits him, she babies him, and she blames Sarah for him having an affair. This woman is awful. She is kind of like a caricature of the evil mother-in-law, but I don't know. I kind of love to hate her because I've had a bad mother-in-law before. I mean, technically we weren't married, but we were together for like 4 or 5 years, and his mum was just horrific. She was in a cult. She tried to recruit me to that cult. When I wouldn't join the cult, she was just very rude. Nearly every time I saw her, she would go on and on about how beautiful Dan's ex was, and I was like, great, thanks. I'm right here. And it was just, everything was awful. There was a lot of issues I had with her, and she would also kind of like think that he was like her special perfect little boy, and there was a lot of creepy emotional incest stuff going on. So Eleanor, the mum in this, I was like, she feels real, because I've known someone like that. And Sarah's hatred of her, while I don't like how steeped in misogyny it is at times, like there are a lot of moments where I'm like, mate, I get it. I'm on your side here, I get it. So yeah, let's read what she says. Sarah? She's the one that got you into this mess. I pull my hands away. What? How? Well, if she would have been more focused on loving you than her career, you wouldn't have been diddle-dipping. I can't believe that's actually written. You wouldn't have been diddle-dipping elsewhere in the first place. Plus, she deprived you of fatherhood and stopped me from becoming a grandmother. Mum crosses her arms in front of her chest. There's also lines about Sarah not wanting kids, like, none of that's true, Mum. I let out a huff and roll my eyes. She just wasn't ready yet. You know why, and you know what she went through. I narrow my eyes. How can she say things like this about my wife? Sarah's been through enough, and she doesn't need this from my mother. So I was guessing at this point it was going to be something like Sarah had a miscarriage early on in their relationship, and it was traumatic, and that's why she doesn't want kids now. Which again, like, as a child-free woman, I find kind of offensive as hell, because so many people push the idea that the only thing stopping people wanting kids is trauma. And if they just get over that trauma, then they'll become normal and be ready for kids again. And it really, really bothers me, because that perpetuates these really harmful stereotypes and myths about child-free people that are just not true at all, and I find it frustrating. I will say that this is not what the backstory was. The backstory is just that Sarah had a bit of an abusive mother who was a drug addict, and she had a bad childhood, and now she doesn't want kids of her own. So, different to what my theory was, but the criticism still stands in that, like, they're giving her a traumatic backstory, and they're making out that that's the only reason she doesn't want kids. And you do see this, like, continue. It's like, if she just got over her trauma, then she'd want to have kids. If she was just with the right man, then she'd want to have kids. I mean, it's really, really harmful stereotypes about child-free people, and it bothers me. In Sarah's chapter, the mother-in-law drags her out for a meal, and they go somewhere called Pineapple and Pearls. And I was all ready to laugh at the ridiculous name, and I was like, what a silly name for a restaurant. Oh, I can't believe she'd come up with this. And then I googled it and found out it's a real place. And a lot of the reviews say that it's overpriced and pretentious. Like one of them, apparently they paid $1,400 for 3 people's meals alone, not including drinks, and the food was generally described as forgettable. It apparently has a Michelin star, but it's not very good compared to like other Michelin star places. Ugh. Anyway, this brings me back to a big problem I have with Geneva's writing, and it's something I touched on earlier, I think. But what's interesting but annoying about this book, and unlike a lot of terrible authors I've reviewed these last couple of years, is that unlike, say, Colleen Hoover, Geneva doesn't forego descriptions in favour of just dialogue. She actually writes long, detailed descriptions of certain locations and people, and she tries to set the scene. Sadly, though, she doesn't do it well because her writing is so poor, and also a lot of it falls flat for me because instead of making me feel like I'm actually there, instead of like often showing me these things, she relies really heavily on like name dropping a lot of brands and locations and stuff like that, and they're all like luxury brands and stuff that I do not know and I'm not familiar with and I know nothing about. Like that bit earlier where Sarah tried to make the comparison between her and her mother-in-law and show how different they are, because Sarah wears Louboutins whereas her mother-in-law wears Manolo Blahniks. I can still never say that. And I'm like, okay, as someone who grew up poor as hell in like a crappy little terrace house in a Yorkshire town rather than village, small, like a farming town. Anyway, as someone who grew up poor as hell and to this day is still just an average person, I don't know what this means. I don't know what this signifies. Like, expensive designer brands mean nothing to me, so I don't know the difference between Louboutins and Manolo Blahniks or whatever. I don't know what they look like. I don't know what the brand identity is. So this doesn't actually tell me anything about these characters other than they have more money than sense. Everything in this book is like Chanel this and overpriced restaurant that and me. And like they can't even order a drink without being a brand name. Like Sarah doesn't ever just order vodka, which is apparently her drink. She orders something brand vodka. She's like, I want this brand. And on the one hand, I kind of get it if you want to show like maybe Sarah being shallow or something like that, but that's not the point. It's just laziness because the author is relying on this level of brand awareness that I, as an Englishwoman with very limited money, don't have. She's relying on that brand awareness rather than taking the time to actually show us anything about the characters themselves, you know? Like if you described, like the shoe thing, if you describe shoes to me and you're like, oh, you know, she was wearing pink glittery stilettos with giant bows on them, whereas she was wearing black flats with sensible laces, I'd be like, that tells me the difference in their characters. But just throwing out two brand names means nothing to me. Like, I get using illusions, but that's all she ever relies on. And when you don't have that knowledge, it means nothing. And I feel like having your illusions only be to like very expensive luxury brands, it just excludes a big chunk of your audience, you know? Anyway, mother-in-law is judgy again, and she also info dumps about Sarah's background to Sarah. She looks up at me. I think you need to accept some fault in this too. And if that's the case, then what? Where in the hell does she get off? On what planet does any of this make sense? I mean, husbands don't typically cheat on loving wives. That's wildly inappropriate. I shake my head in disbelief. She keeps going. And Adam's always wanted to be a father, and I a grandmother, and you have withheld that joy from us. Now, I know you had a rough upbringing with your dad's passing and your mum's drug addiction, but that's not something you get to hold on to forever. Look, she's awful. I'm not going to pretend she's not. But Sarah's response to this is also really inappropriate. It's giving misogyny. She attempts to raise an eyebrow, but her Botox-infested face isn't able to comply. Like, yes, this woman is awful and she's wrong, and you should call her out for this and tell her that she's being rude. But don't insult her face because she's had Botox. It's just... Let's not, shall we, okay? I'm not someone who's ever had any type of Botox or procedure or anything because, 1, it's expensive, and 2, I'm terrified of needles, and 3, the idea of putting poison in my face terrifies me. But I'm never going to shame someone else for doing it. Their face, their choice. Let them do it. Don't judge them for it and, like, say that their face is infested. It's just, like, don't. Absolutely don't. I mean, not that Eleanor, the mother-in-law, is any better. She is also misogynistic and gross and inappropriate. Like, listen to this, her response. Ugh, I really wish you would have paid more attention to my son and upheld your wifely duties. Adam wouldn't be in this predicament otherwise. Such a shame. She shakes her head as she speaks. Stop it. She is awful. The mother-in-law is still awful. Don't get me wrong there. Back to Adam's chapter, and there's more insufferable self-pity again. It gets really old. He's then visited by Scott Summers, Kelly's husband, which they admit is against the rules, but the plot requires it to happen, so it's happening. Adam's like, I know you were abusive, and Scott's like, no, I wasn't. I wouldn't. And then he starts punching furniture, which is not making me believe him, I'll be honest. Scott says that Kelly was making it all up, and that she also used to say the same things to her about her first husband who was murdered. Adam says to him, "She did come over crying and told me all about what you did and what you had been doing to her over the years. I've seen her bruises on more than one occasion. Why would she lie?" I don't effing know. Maybe for sympathy, maybe for attention. I don't know why she would do that. But I can tell you one thing, she used to come back to me when I was an officer in Appleton, Wisconsin, and tell me all the same stuff about her first husband, that he was abusing her. I would never intentionally hurt her, and now I'm starting to think maybe he didn't either. He's glancing all over the place as if he's putting all the pieces together, but his furrowed brows and wide eyes show me that it's not making sense. None of it does. Why would she do that? And I wrote in my original script, if this is where the book is going, I hate it. But women who come forward about domestic violence, we already have a hard enough time being believed and not personally blamed for it without other women writing books where a central plot point is a woman making up her domestic violence accusations after all. So I was really hoping this is not where the book was going. But the thing is, Jeneva just leaves it open-ended. She never actually tells us whether Kelly was a victim of domestic violence or not, or who it was that was doing it to her or anything. So I feel like, while it's not as bad as just straight up having a point where she was making it up, even just leaving it open-ended like this is pretty damn insulting to us survivors, you know? This interaction is interrupted by Sarah, Anne, and Matthew. I'm still trying to understand why Matthew is even in this book. So far, I have nothing. Having read the book to the end, I have nothing. Why is he here? Adam narrates, Anne is like Sarah's puppet, doing and saying whatever she's told. Their relationship has always rubbed me the wrong way. Anne idolises Sarah, and Sarah basks in that attention. Matthew has always been Sarah's sidekick, and it appears Robin has returned to Batman's side. I still think Anne is the blackmailer, and I would not be surprised if she's the killer. Are you trying to lose this case? Sarah taps her Louboutin stiletto rapidly on the tile floor. I'm sorry, but no man in jail for apparently killing his mistress is going to bother to stop and notice or even recognise the brand of shoes his wife/defence lawyer is wearing. Lines like this take me out of it because this is not Adam's voice. Adam would not notice this or say this or do this. This is purely the author. Why write in first person if you're not gonna write as your characters? Do you know what I mean? Other than this, nothing happens in the chapter. And at this point, I'm going to go pause and get some lunch because my tummy is rumbling like crazy and it's so loud I'm worried the microphone's picking it up. Okay, so in the next chapter, they discuss defense strategy and Matthew says he'd do anything for Sarah. Maybe even kill for her? Nah, probably not. I am going to bet anything this book ends up being a woman is the evil person, murderer type thing because I just get the feeling, a vibe if you will. Adam is about to enter a not guilty plea, but before they enter the court, Sarah throws up in a bin. So I was like, what are we betting? She's either A, pregnant, B, faking a pregnancy because she wants Adam to think she's pregnant for some reason, or C, throwing up out of guilt because she's the murderer. Adam pleads not guilty, but he is allowed out on bail, but he has to be on house arrest. Not in his own home for some reason, not in his doting mother's home, but in the lake house. This makes no sense. He is put under house arrest at the crime scene. This feels bizarre, right? I'm sure this wouldn't happen in the real world. Well, it might do, but I don't know. Sarah goes to see the sheriff and we get more investigation developments. The bottle of scotch had rohypnol in, as we suspected, but Adam, despite drinking the scotch, didn't have any rohypnol in his system, apparently. Now I'm looking back at this makes no sense because at the end of the book, the murderer says that they put rohypnol in the scotch and Adam drank it and he was passed out when the murder was happening. Like, the murderer says Adam was passed out from the rohypnol, so I don't understand now this. Plot hole? Seems it. Other information that we get is that Kelly had been texting another number, as yet it's unknown who it was, and the third semen sample has no matches yet. And there was a fingerprint on the blackmail photo, but it also has no matches. Adam is on house arrest, as we know, and he starts to get paranoid about Sarah and the sheriff, the whole flirtation between them, which just feels rushed and forced, and I don't see the point of it at all. Maybe just to make Adam jealous? Sarah just mumbles to herself, but she seems disappointed that he's leaving. Why does she want him to stay? Is she trying to get more information out of him for the case, or is there something between them? No one pays any mind to my mother's comments, including myself. Something isn't right. Why is she offering him coffee? Why does he feel comfortable in my house? Why did she come here? Was it to see me or to see Sheriff Stevens? Is she interested in him? Is he interested in her? I'm not really in a position to be indignant or pry, but something is very off here. However, the last thing I need is to push Sarah away more than I already have. This will have to wait. Mate, you have no right being jealous of her simply being around another man and talking to him about your murder investigation, because you've been cheating on her for the last 18 months. I think it's okay for her to speak to another man. The insecurity of Adam is off the charts. It's insane. Also, I ask again, why can this author not write a platonic relationship between a man and a woman unless one of them is gay? Sarah moves around the kitchen making a pot of coffee and putting out 2 cups. She opens several cupboards as she's clearly unfamiliar with the house. Sheriff Stevens leans against the counter. I watch him watch her. His eyes are scanning her body up and down. If they haven't already effed, he wants to. That much is clear. I hate this whole storyline, this Sheriff and Sarah flirting storyline. And I'll tell you this, it goes nowhere. There is no point to it. It's just weird. There's also another weird moment where the sheriff seems shocked to hear that Kelly was the one accused of killing her first husband, which again is shocking. It's surely he would know this. If he'd actually done his job, he would know this. How does he not? His incompetence is confusing. In the next chapter, Sarah goes to check out the coffee shop where Kelly worked. Does anyone else find it odd that she's doing so much legwork herself here and that she doesn't seem to currently have any other work on? It's very strange. Most lawyers I know of work several cases at a time, right? And the little stuff like going out and talking to people, that's done by assistants or whatever. It's not done by the properly high up qualified lawyers themselves, right? I don't know. Words are hard today. Anyway, in the coffee shop, one of Kelly's co-workers says there was another man who would hang around the shop when Kelly was working. This guy would apparently write or draw while he was there, and apparently his name was Jesse Hook. So this was the guy who texted her the "I'm sorry" that night. I don't think, again, any of us are shocked, are we? Sarah gets Anne to run a background check on him. Adam wallows some more. It's repetitive and boring, we don't care. He's so useless, his mother has to change him into pyjamas out of his regular clothes. This is 36-year-old man, and his mummy's changing his clothes? He's pathetic. Some woman called Rebecca shows up at the lake house and says she's a reporter and just happens to be a big fan of his failed books, and she also took a fiction writing class that he taught a year or so ago, so of course he falls for the flattery and he's oh, well, okay, I'll believe anything you say, and he just immediately spills everything about Kelly's name change, her first husband's murder, the blackmail, absolutely everything. And he's yeah, I've known you 5 minutes, told you my whole life story and my entire defense and everything like that. I need your help in return. I'm gonna hire you to look into Kelly and Scott's past. Even though his wife, with more money and resources, is already doing this, he doesn't care. He doesn't trust his wife/lawyer. He's I'm gonna trust this random woman that I've known for 5 minutes. He's stupid. She says, here's what I want. An exclusive interview and $5,000 for my troubles. She holds out her hand to make a deal. I look at her hand and then at her. I honestly didn't think she'd have the balls to ask for cash. She sure is a firecracker. I consider negotiating with her, but I don't have any other options, and I don't really have the time to be finagling over pocket change. You got yourself a deal. I shake her hand. I'm sorry, pocket change? £5,000? Not even your money, mate. It's your wife's. Oof, I hate this man. I need to find out the name of her first husband, and then I need names and numbers and maybe background reports if you can muster that up on friends and family he was really close with. I guess I'll start there. Can you handle it? It shouldn't be a problem. You said her name was Jeneva? Yes, Jeneva, from Wisconsin, I confirm. And then he just pays her, literally, he gives her in cash $2,500 that he just has stashed in the house. Who the hell has this? And if I was her, I wouldn't be walking around with that much cash on me. God, no, it's terrifying. He says, or he narrates, "I really hope she didn't just take my cash without any intention of helping me or following through with the investigation. Not much else I can do, so I guess I'll have to just take my chance. Time is ticking." Like, I'm sorry, but like, you didn't even bother to ask her for ID or find out who she is or confirm where she works. None of you, just handed over a crap ton of money to a stranger. Like, in a lot of ways, I hope you get scammed. You deserve to be. I did think she was like a scammer or something, or like someone working against him. Like, I don't know. I didn't know who she was, but I felt something wasn't right. In Sarah's chapter, her boss is concerned because your recent behaviour and performance here at the firm have been erratic, to put it mildly. You come and go as you please, you don't return calls, you miss meetings. Have you forgotten that as a named partner, you don't have the luxury of focusing on one case, one client at a time? And thank God someone called her out for this, because I thought I was going crazy, like, noticing it. She doesn't care, though. She thinks her personal struggles are more important than, like, her entire career, so yeah. And, like, while he has a point, and I was like all ready to agree with him and think her boss was pretty cool, he then goes and ruins it by resorting to being patronising as hell. He goes, "Look, Sarah, I'm not here to scold you. You're a big girl, and you're free to do as you please, for the most part. I just want to get a handle on this because it's making us look weak and spread thin. And don't think others haven't noticed." Like, I'm sorry, don't call her a big girl. What? Oh, hate this. Patronising. Anyway, he ends up being like, "Okay, fine, you can work on this one case and one case only, but get it done quick, and I'll get other people to cover your work for you," and that's it. So this unrealistic plot hole is just covered up immediately, as conveniently as possible. He does throw a little bit of a curveball, though, when he says, "Don't thank me yet. You see, since you aren't covering corporate accounts, you don't get to enjoy the monthly retainer fees they bring in, i.e. your portion of the profit sharing is on hold until you end this case. That's not in our agreement. You can't effing..." Or what? You'll sue me? See how that goes for you. Look, this should be an incentive for you. End this quickly, the money comes back. Understood? And I don't understand how lawyers work and how they get paid and stuff like that. But, I mean, she's not doing a job, is she? So I think this seems fair enough to me. She's essentially taking time off. She's not doing her work. So, yeah, why should she get paid for it? I don't know. And besides, it's not like she's short on cash, right? Because she's just dropped $500,000 on bail for her husband. She's clearly not short on money. She's got 2 massive properties. She's got fancy cars. She's got all this designer clothing and stuff like that. Her husband's just apparently got $2,500 in cash lying around a lake house. Like, I think they're going to be fine, you know? She decides the mature response to this is to swear and insult her boss, insult his secretary, and then insult some other random men who are going into a meeting with her boss. Very mature. Good job, Sarah. Then she goes up to see Adam in the lake house, and they both cry, and they almost have sex, but then she changes her mind and leaves. And I get the trauma pulling them together like this, but it is followed by some of the cringiest lines I've ever read. Right, listen to this. So Adam narrates, "I'm sitting on the couch, sipping my second glass of scotch, and eating a New York strip with my hands. Sarah left over an hour ago, and it took 15 minutes to beat the memory of her out of my penis." Ew, stop it. No, stop. At this point, Adam's manager calls him and is like, "Oh my God, this is great. Love that you're accused of murder. You can write a book about this." And Adam goes, "He's not wrong. This is a great story, and it's my story to tell. I know I didn't do this, but I can figure out who did. A whole true crime mystery for me to tell the world. A guaranteed New York Times bestseller. But what would I call it? In warm blood. It wasn't me. I'm rusty. I take a pad of paper and a pen from the coffee table and start writing down everything that's happened, starting from the very beginning." Stop it. You can tell he's a poor writer. In Sarah's chapter, Matthew sends her chocolates, and Anne says, "I swear he has a thing for you." She raises an eyebrow. "He's gay." "Yeah, but he'd be straight for you," Anne says with a mouthful of chocolate. "That's not how that works." "He's at least bisexual." She curls the corner of her lip. "Doubtful." I roll my eyes. Can we just not do this, please? Like, can we not? No, let's not. We also find out about Jesse's background check. He is 32, he is a freelance writer, he paints for fun, he's never married and has no kids, so in Sarah's mind, he's kind of a creepy recluse. Which I find very offensive as a 32-year-old self-employed woman, never married, no kids, paints for fun, spends a lot of time alone. Does that make me a creepy recluse? Maybe it does. No, seriously, we are 54% of the way through this book, and honestly, it's starting to drag for me. It's getting really, really slow. It's not as fun anymore. Everyone's just a bit stupid and incompetent, which is more frustrating than it is funny, but we're going to plough through. Let's do this. I do have to say that the incompetency thing is getting to me a bit. I definitely have a preference in my books and other media that I consume. I like what some people call competency porn or competence porn, which is basically just media which portrays the protagonist as doing like, you know, they're being damn good at their jobs or whatever tasks they have to do, and the drama comes from the situation and how they handle it, not from their incompetence dragging out the story. So great examples of like competence porn are like Andy Weir's The Martian or Project Hail Mary, or if we're talking about film, I'd recommend The Night Eats the World, which is this fantastic film set in Paris during a zombie apocalypse. Like, the protagonist in that does everything he can, and he's really, really damn competent. And it's like, you know, when you... well, actually, I don't know if you guys do. I do this. I'm like, ooh, if there was like a zombie apocalypse right now or like some sort of like end of the world type thing, how would I survive? And I come up with little plans in my head. I'm like, I go here and I shelter here and I do this and I get supplies here and I have it all planned out in my mind. It's almost like he's done that and he does everything perfectly and he doesn't make any stupid decisions, but the world is still so unfair and difficult, and that's where the drama comes from. And because he's so competent, you're really rooting for him, and it just makes everything so brilliantly tense and very emotive. And I say that as someone who doesn't actually really like zombie films all that much, and I don't really watch them, but this was a really, really great example, and I really enjoyed it. Anyway, what I'm saying is, this book is like the opposite. What I'm trying to say is this book is the opposite of competency porn. It's just everyone being incompetent all the time, and it's so frustrating. Adam is told that tons of publishers want his as yet unwritten book. And he says, "Holy crap, all my dreams are finally going to come true." I take a seat at my desk ready to pull the pages out. This story is going to make my career. It's going to make people know who Adam Morgan is. I crack my knuckles and open a blank Word document. I type, "Adam Morgan, murder he wrote." Stop it, you're such a bad writer, stop it, no. Ugh. Rebecca, the apparent journalist, shows up again, as you do. She just pops around and she info dumps. She tells us that Kelly's first husband was called Greg. They were married for 18 months when they were 20 years old. His parents are still alive but in their 60s, so they all conclude that they must be too old to have possibly murdered Kelly. Kind of ridiculous, but okay, I guess. Then we meet this new character called Nicholas Miller, who is Greg's brother. No one knows who he is or where he is. Maybe he's in Virginia. Maybe he's in Maryland. Maybe he's anywhere in between. Maybe he's somewhere else entirely. And why? No one knows. Either way, like, Rebecca has this list of like 72 numbers, like phone numbers, and she's like, one of these could be Nicholas Miller. I don't know which. Start dialing. So Adam does. He just starts phoning up these random people. We then cut back to Sarah, and she's grumpy that the sheriff is no longer flirting with her. And part of me is like, when was he ever? And the other part of me is like, okay, and? I don't care. So she goes to the station to see him, but not before flinging more unnecessary insults at a bunch of other women. For example, I fly into the police station parking lot and charge right through the front doors wearing 5-inch nude Louboutin heels and a white dress with a caramel-coloured trench coat. I need to see Sheriff Stevens, I say to the woman working the front desk. She's dull and tired-looking. Haggard would probably be the best word for her. And mean would probably be the best word for you. That's just unnecessary. So Sarah storms into the office, and the receptionist appears behind me. I'm sorry, sir, she just ran past me. She's a persistent little shrew. Marge says as she tries to grab my arm. I elbow her, and she clutches at her stomach in pain. I enter the office, smooth out my dress, and take a seat. All of this is completely unnecessary and inappropriate. You can't just go around calling people persistent little shrews and insulting them, and then you can't go around literally physically assaulting people by elbowing them in the stomach in return. What is wrong with all these people? Sarah tells the sheriff what she's learnt about Jesse. Apparently he didn't even know he existed before because, again, he's completely incompetent and I don't understand it. Sarah demands that the police bring him in and interview him, and she wants to be there when the interview takes place, which, again, I think it's inappropriate and wouldn't happen, right? But the sheriff agrees because plot, I guess. We cut back to Adam. There's more wallowing and self-pity. Why do we even have his narration at this point? It's all the same. Like, I sit there for a good 20 minutes, stewing in my own depression. Is this it for me? I made one mistake and my life is over. How is that fair? How is any of this fair? There's a lot of things I deserve, but jail or execution isn't one of them. I guess this is the life I chose. This is the path I decided to walk down. This is it. Can you shut up already? You're so annoying. He is so annoying. His mum comes over and coddles him some more. Then she leaves. Again, I ask, why is she even there? She's just annoying. Back to Sarah again. You see, these chapters are short and nothing actually happens in them. So back to Sarah. She watches the interview with Jesse. Which starts with her judging him because he looks a bit scruffy and scared, and she calls him a bunch of really sweary names for no reason. I'm going to jump over them because it's just mean. In the interview, he says he wasn't obsessed with Kelly, they were just friends, and that she gave him her phone number. He says the sorry that he texted her was because, I don't know, she hadn't been answering my phone calls. I figured she was mad at me for something. And literally that's all we ever really learn about Jesse. That is it. We don't even learn what was like really happening between him and Kelly. Was he stalking her? Were they really friends? We don't know. The author just leaves it. While the interview with Jesse is going on, Anne texts Sarah updates about what Adam's doing. She tells him how he spent $10,000 on a new mattress and bedding, and what the hell? That much money would pay my rent for almost a year, and he's spending it on a bed? That is ridiculous. And Anne also says that he had a reporter over, and I'm wondering, like, has she been spying on him this whole time? Like, keeping tabs on him? Is that how she took the photo of him and Kelly? Because I'm pretty damn certain it's her. Yeah, that's a theory. Sarah narrates, I know I told Anne to keep an eye on Adam. However, she's getting so close it's making me uncomfortable. The number of calls, I said I wanted to know everything. But how much is too much? And this redhead he's hired to help him. Ugh, Adam once again is hiding things from me. Would I expect anything less? No, not even in the slightest. This is exactly why I have Anne making sure he's been watched at all times. I don't need any other surprises like Jesse here. So at this point I was like, oh yeah, Anne is definitely the blackmailer. Sarah may or may not be involved in the blackmail, but I'm definitely thinking like she's the killer still. Like it's the obvious thing, right? Anyway, back in the interview, Jesse says that her husband Scott was abusive, both physically and verbally. I witnessed both. So 2 people say Scott was abusive. Scott says he wasn't. Okay. Scott's police officer friend and the guy who was his alibi for the night of the murder, Deputy Hudson, he's the guy who first arrested and beat up Adam. He turns up to watch the interview and says it's for entertainment. And I'm like, does he not have a job to do? Do none of these people actually work when they're supposed to? No, apparently not. Sarah thinks he's just there to cover his own bum in case Jesse says anything incriminating about him. Then Hudson and Sarah just insult each other. She swears at him. He leaves. Okay, cool, whatever. After a whole 20-minute interview, the sheriff is apparently done with Jesse. For good, that's it. Fine, it's over. He's cleared of everything. I mean, this is not how interviews and interrogations go in the real world, but okay, I guess. They test his DNA and the sheriff says, I'll expedite it to the lab. 24 hours. Again, I don't think this would happen. Like, the backlog they probably already have on DNA testing is going to be so long and insane because it is everywhere. Like, this is just unrealistic. Because it's not like this is an emergency, is it? Like, no, it wouldn't be done. Meanwhile, Adam got blackout drunk again and can't remember parts of his night again. He's clearly an alcoholic, and I thought this would have, like, some impact on the plot, but it doesn't. So there you go. There's more self-pity from him again. Like, it's we should expect it at this point, right? Until Sarah arrives and confronts him about all the money he's been spending and the apparent reporter that he's hired. She tells him he's stupid, which he is. She says she's already doing jury selection, which seems incredibly quick in terms of like the trial and everything, but what do I know? Like, this all feels very backwards, right? He got arrested, then he's getting his trial stuff set up, and only now are the police actually bothering to investigate and try and find any evidence against him or anyone else. Like, I don't know, maybe that's meant to be a statement on the deficiencies of the American justice system, or maybe it's just a massive plot hole because this author's terrible. Who's to say? Then it's just pages of back and forth of Sarah and Adam calling each other names. Adam really does just seem stupid and gullible, I'll be honest. Scott said he never hurt Kelly, and I think I believe him. Based on that, maybe he didn't have anything to do with it. Jesse Hook confirmed he witnessed Scott physically and verbally abuse Kelly. Why would he lie? Wait, he did? But Scott swore up and down he didn't. Why the hell would Scott lie to me? Why would he care what I thought? Something isn't adding up. He'd lie because abusers always lie, and they never want to get caught, and they never want to get found out or judged or face punishment, and if he did kill her, he wants to get away with it. That's why he'd lie. Sarah replies with, who in their right mind would admit to abusing their late wife? She's right, I'm such an idiot. He just seemed like he was telling the truth. He seemed like he just wanted to help. And maybe he does. Just because he was abusive doesn't mean he killed her. I don't know what I'm saying. Of course he could have. He has a temper. He's a bumhole. He could get away with it. He's a cop, for Christ's sake. Maybe I shouldn't write him off based on one conversation. This whole thing is a mess. I don't know if I'm looking at the right person or even in the right direction. Again, it's infuriating as hell to read. So the chapter ends with Sarah asking Adam to stop spending her money, which I think is completely fair, and he responds, I thought it was our money, Sarah. We're married, remember? I snark back, folding my arms in front of my chest. He is the worst. He just is. There is nothing redeeming about him. Like, Sarah's awful at times too, but then at other times you're like, oh no, actually I see where she's coming from, and she's like a little bit more, like, she is morally great, because she does good things, she does bad things. Adam is just awful. There's no grey with him. He's just absolutely awful. Sarah learns about the book that he's writing and is understandably mad about it and storms off. In the next chapter, Sarah asks Anne to help by saying he's been drinking a lot too, and that must be clouding his judgment. I need you to get the phone turned off at the lake house. I don't want him destroying the case with his drunk dialing. And I was like, this seems dangerous. And also, what about mobile phones? They exist, you know? But, okay, odd. Also, I thought this would be like setting up some action or drama later, but it doesn't. There are absolutely no consequences of this at all. Yeah. She goes for dinner with Matthew and calls Adam's mum a bitch over and over and over again. So does he. And for the 20th video I've made this year, I ask again, can we please stop having women casually calling other women bitches, please? It's just, I'm over it. Like I say, Matthew responds by also calling her a miserable bitch. Lovely. Matthew pauses and looks at me. You know, I still don't understand why you're defending your husband in all this. Because he's my husband, I sigh. And regardless of what he's put me through, deep down I still love him. I still don't get it. Maybe that's a me problem, because I have absolutely no patience for, useless cheating men anymore, but I don't get it. Matthew says that she's making mistakes, you're pushing this trial through quickly? Why? I have my reasons and they're none of your business. And I was like, yeah, this sounds like something the real murderer would say or do, right? Or someone protecting the real murderer, like Anne, maybe. Or the real murderer. If she wants a quick trial, if she's defending him because she's trying to actually, frame him, this would all make sense. It's the only thing that would make sense. Because the reasons she's giving right now do not. So she goes home, drinks a bunch of wine, falls asleep. And then there's this really weird scene, right? Get ready for this. I spend the evening sipping wine and reviewing all the facts of the case. I doze off around 10, which I didn't intend to, but wine. It's much later when I hear someone coming up the stairs. I've had a longing desire for something ever since this ordeal started. I've been unsatisfied for quite some time, and I need something, anything. I can feel the pressure in the air change slightly, and I know the door has been opened. I'm not the only person in the room anymore. I stare at the ceiling, but with no light, it begins to morph into a cloud of blue and black, a swirl of something beyond. I start to lift off the bed and the room becomes warm, and it feels more familiar than I've ever known. I can feel eyes upon me, circling me like prey in the darkness, but I'm not afraid. Quite the opposite. I'm dressed in lacy panties and a lacy bra, a piece of meat garnished for presentation. That's gross. I'm sorry, but what woman would compare herself to a piece of meat? That's grim as hell. Let's not do that, please. So this mysterious stranger has entered her house and has sex with her, then she falls back asleep, and then she wakes up the next morning alone. The mattress presses down and I feel breath on me. Soft hands slide up my stomach, then grasp at my breasts, massaging them. So not even a hello, they're just going straight for it. My breath quickens. I want this as bad as anything in my life. I can feel a cloying stickiness build up in my panty. Oh, didn't need to read that. A rubbing sensation grows as I begin to moan, and then something is inside me. My every desire being fulfilled, as if the thoughts in my head were being projected on the wall and deciphered. By the time I climax, I'm more drained than I've been in days. Sleep quickly comes over me as I drift back down onto the bed, chasing a new sense of longing. When I awake the next morning, there's a void just next to me in the bed. I can't wait for the day when that hole is filled for good. Oh, I'm a child. Yeah, so on first reading, I was really confused by this. I was like, was it a dream? Was it a drunken rape? Was it consensual sex with someone new? Is it someone she's been having an affair with? I don't understand what I just read or what the point was. And I wish I could give you more context for this scene, but there is no more context. What I just read you is it in its entirety. From what I can tell, though, this was a real person. She just doesn't say who it is for no other reason than the author wants to keep the audience in suspense. There's no reason for Sarah as a character and a narrator to not name them, but the author doesn't want her to, so she doesn't. Okay. I feel like with all the stuff that the author wants to hide from the reader and, like, you know, keep us questioning and stuff like that, a third-person omniscient narrator would have been much better for this book than these first-person accounts, because as it stands, the hidden things and the bits that I suspect are just flat-out lies from the narrators do not make sense. If she wanted lies or hidden things with a first-person narrative and, you know, withholding information and so on, then she could have had that in there, but, like, give it a reason for it, you know? I think I mentioned this earlier, but, like, you know, say they're narrating their story in a police statement or an interview, or, you know, Adam's writing his book and it's extracts from that, or it's emails between Sarah and Anne, or whatever. Like, there are ways you can write in the first person and have reasons in the narrative itself for why these characters might be lying or holding things back at times. But as it stands, it just being like a stream of consciousness narration that's meant to be just like, oh, this is what's going through their heads, like, with no actual, like, audience as such. Like, it doesn't make sense that the characters are lying and withholding information. Why would Sarah lie to herself? It makes no sense. I don't sit around the house thinking, oh, remember when that person came over last week? That was nice, but better not consciously think about too many details of it, because there's no reason for me to hide stuff from myself or lie to myself. I'd just be like, oh, nice when so-and-so came over, wasn't it? That was fun. That's how a real person thinks, and they, like, name the people and think about it and whatever. Like, there's no reason for her to be hiding information. There's no reason for her flat-out lies in the narration. And it's really frustrating. It takes me out of this book so much, and it's just damn poor writing. Anyway, this next morning, Sarah decides that she is definitely divorcing Adam after the Anyway, she gets to work, and her colleague Bob, who up to this point has been like, we're meant to think he's some sort of antagonist, he's suddenly had a change of tune, and he's like, your husband's making me look bad. How can I help? But in the middle of the conversation, he gets a mysterious phone call that he says is from the wrong number. And he just puts the phone down, and then Sarah's like, hey, can you take care of Rebecca the reporter, please? Done. Anne comes in and says the phone lines have been cut to the lake house, and then the sheriff calls and says Jesse was not a match to the third semen sample. End of chapter. At the start of Adam's chapter, he's still dialing all those numbers that he got from Rebecca, the supposed reporter, and he's looking for, remember, Kelly's brother-in-law. And then on the very, very final number on the list of the 72 numbers, because this is how it always is in this story, isn't it? It's always the very last one. How convenient. You know what? He should just start from the bottom of the list, shouldn't he? Anyway, on the very last number he dials, the guy picks up immediately and he's like, oh, wrong number, and hangs up. Just like Bob did the page before. Clearly this man he just phoned is Bob. And I'm like, is Bob really Nicholas Miller? Maybe, probably. Do I care? Not even a little bit. Now, could this author just trust that her readers picked up on this by themselves? No, she has to smash it over our heads just in case we're stupid. So Rebecca shows up at the house and is like, I found three people related to Greg, which is Kelly's dead husband, remember? 1, a cousin called Cheryl with a disorderly conduct charge and 2 kids. 2, Greg's ex-fiancée, Maddie. And 3, also this guy was like, they got married at 20, they were together for 18 months, and he had an ex-fiancée before that. Like, how young are these people getting together? Anyway, And 3, finally, Greg's brother Nicholas Robert Miller, who looks very familiar to Adam, but he can't place him. Nicholas Robert Miller, you say? Otherwise known as maybe, I don't know, Nicholas Bob Miller, or maybe he just goes by Bob these days. Oh my god, what a shock. Adam, of course, being stupid, does not piece all this together because he's dumb and he's never taken a real interest in his wife's work, but it's obvious to the reader, right? This shouldn't be a shock to us. It would also explain why he's now so keen to help Sarah, and also apparently he's been trying to poach Anne, her assistant, so I am still thinking Anne's involved in some way. Gotta be. Now we finally get the reveal that we all saw coming, like, from the very first page of the book, near enough. The second chapter of the book. We get the reveal that Anne is the one who is blackmailing Adam, which comes as a shock to no one at all. Turns out, like a week ago, Sarah brought over case files for Adam to look at, and he just didn't. He didn't bother at all. But Rebecca, the reporter, is like, let me look through these for you. And on one of them is a post-it note with a handwritten note. And Rebecca's like, oh, this is the same handwriting as on the blackmail note. Oh my god. And we're not explicitly told it's Anne, but we all know it's Anne, right? And then Adam's like, oh, I know who's blackmailing me, or who tried to blackmail me, or whatever. And it's like, it's not shocking. Like, we all saw it coming. What is shocking is that Adam was the one to figure it out.
Jason figured it out? Jason? This is a real low point. Yeah, this one hurts.
Back to Sarah again, and she gets it into her head that the third set of DNA must come from Deputy Marcus Hudson, because she thinks he must have been having an affair with Kelly, which would make sense, I guess, why he was so angry arresting Adam in the first place, but I don't know, like, they tried to make him too suspicious. I think, if anything, it's the sheriffs, you know? Like, they tried to, like, kind of throw us off with that flirting with Sarah thing, but, like, it's the only other person it can be. If it's not Jesse, this Marcus guy is too obvious. There's no one else it could be except the sheriff. It's got to be the sheriff. I don't think it's Bob. It's got to be the sheriff, right? That's what I was thinking at this point. But here's where we have a plot hole. Because according to my very quick Google search and some common sense, most police officers in America have their DNA and fingerprints stored on file for purposes of elimination in investigations. As in, if they go to a crime scene, they're bound to leave some DNA evidence, right? Because that's just what humans do. So that needs to be eliminated immediately so tests can see who else was there and actually find the criminals, which means that police officers have their DNA on file. So being involved in this investigation and at the crime scene, Marcus's DNA would have been tested against most samples found at the crime scene, right? Therefore, it would have made sense that they would have probably also checked his DNA against the semen sample, surely. So, if it was his semen, then they'd have got a match while testing it, so it can't have been his. Actually, by this logic, it shouldn't be any police officers, unless maybe you're a sheriff in charge of this investigation and you're purposely trying to get it covered up. Just saying. It's either the sheriff's DNA, or this is a massive plot hole, or both. So at this point, I did change my theory, right? The sheriff's the one having the affair with Kelly, and that's why he's gone to all this trouble to try and wrap the case up so quickly and cover it up and pin it on someone else and blah, 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 and he's dodgy as hell. I still don't think he's the one who killed her, unless Anne is his secret daughter and they're in it together, and I don't know. I don't know. But it's got to be the sheriff's DNA. That's what I'm thinking. He even says, I'm not bringing Deputy Hudson in for questioning nor testing his DNA without evidence. That's ridiculous, Sarah. He raises his voice. Then let's bring Jesse in again. Let's ask him to specify. Because apparently he saw Kelly with a police officer. Sarah, this is over. There is no let's. This is my investigation and it's closed. Please do not call me again. Sheriff Stevens hands up the phone. And see, he doesn't want to help. He doesn't. He's dodgy. Dodgy man. So, let's summarise our theory, well, my theory, which is now our theory so far. Here's what I'm thinking based on all the evidence. Sarah's colleague Bob is the ex-brother-in-law of dead Kelly, previously Jenna. He found out her new identifier when he saw assistant Anne's photos of husband Adam and Kelly having an affair, so he went to confront her about her getting away with killing his brother. And she was like, it wasn't me who covered it up, it was Scott. So he's like, right, I need to confront your police officer husband. But when he gets there, he sees her with the sheriff instead of Scott, and he's like, that must be the police officer husband. So he goes to confront the sheriff, but then the sheriff scares him off and decides to go and see Kelly to be like, hey, don't worry, I fixed this. Meanwhile, at the lake house, Anne has drugged the scotch with rohypnol to teach Kelly and Adam a lesson because she wants them knocked out enough that the cleaner finds them the next morning and exposes the affair. But for some reason, Adam didn't drink as much as he normally does, only Kelly did, so he woke up sooner. But while they were both asleep anyway, the sheriff came to the lake house, found Kelly passed out naked with another man, so she'd been cheating on him. Shock, horror. In anger, he stabs her multiple times and then spends the rest of the book covering up his murder. Jessie is just a red herring. Sarah is also now sleeping with Anne, I've just decided, because, hey, it never specified who her nighttime visitor was or their gender, and it never said a penis entered her. It said something entered her. Plus, this is what Anne's always wanted, right? Because she's so obsessed with Sarah and dresses like her and is becoming her. And I reckon Sarah would be really into that. She would totally be into being with someone who looks and acts exactly like her. Definitely would. I reckon the Sarah and Anne affair started the night that Kelly was murdered because, like, Sarah said there was like a little like awkward moment between them or something, which we're never actually told what that was, so whatever. But since then they've been like hugging and holding hands a lot, and we know this author can't write platonic affection, so it has to be sexual. So there you go. That is my convoluted and ridiculous theory so far. And I wish I was right, because it's so much more interesting than the actual ending we get. Back to the actual story, and Anne suggests that Sarah go and talk to the DA instead of the sheriff to get him to look into the other deputy, and the chapter ends with, absolutely. Anne gets up from her chair, eager and ready to help in any possible way. She's the one person I can always depend on, the one person I can always trust. And yeah, see, I'm set in the they're having an affair theory now. Back to Adam again, and I wish we weren't, but he reveals that Anne wrote the note. We already know this, so no surprise. What's not a surprise, though, is that he's angry about this, because of course he is, he's always angry. I rubbed my head, willing the answer to come to me. She is obsessed with Sarah, and she's never really liked me. Maybe she wanted her all to herself. If she's obsessed with Sarah, perhaps she'd do anything for Sarah, like kill her cheating husband's mistress? Rebecca raises an eyebrow. See, this was in my original theory when I started the book, but at this point I think it's too simple. So I'm sticking with my convoluted theory, you know? Sarah doing the killing would be too obvious and simple, and at this point I think Anne doing the killing would be too obvious and simple. So I like my convoluted sheriff killed her theory because of all of the above. Weirdly though, Adam seems to think that this statement is Rebecca, the reporter, accusing Sarah and not Anne, and he gets really mad at her, and he's like, don't you dare! Sarah would never effing do that. I point at her and narrow my eyes. I could literally hurt Rebecca now. I'm glaring at her as I pace back and forth. I can see the uneasiness in her face. How easy would it be to lunge across the room and take her to the ground, wrap my hands around her throat, crush her windpipe with my thumbs as I watch her eyes fill up with blood and the life slowly leave her. I could be in control of something. Finally, I could validate the fear that is on her face. And yeah, see, I really hate this insecure little man-child. He's a violent little man, he's nasty. I don't believe he killed Kelly, but I think he has the capacity to, and I'm fine if he does end up being sent to prison for this murder that he didn't commit, you know? It might not be just, but it would be a damn satisfying ending. Adam decides to do the sensible thing here, and he steals Rebecca's car keys and her car and runs out of the house, and he drives away, despite his ankle monitor, so he can go and confront Anne at the office. Yeah, real smart. Good one. Again, we're back to Sarah. She's having a meeting with the DA, but they're interrupted by a scream from outside. Who could it be? We'll never know. It's Adam and Anne, obviously. While driving to the office, Adam had narrated... so he's angry at Anne, obviously, but he gets quite misogynistic about it, and he narrates, she's never been a person I looked at twice. She was there, seemingly innocent, but now I see the cracks in her. I see who she really is. A vengeful monster. Her quietness is now plotting and manipulative. Her politeness is cunning. Her entire wholesome demeanour is just a facade for who she truly is. A bitch of the highest order. You're awful. You're such a mean, awful person. So Adam gets to the office, and by some miracle the police haven't caught up with him yet. Anne is walking with Bob, and Adam is just so damn dumb that he goes, "The man she's walking with is familiar. I've seen him before." Well, obviously I must have seen him before, but I feel like this before was recent. Are you kidding me? Like, look, okay, I have major face blindness, so I don't want to judge too much. Add to that the fact that I am very short-sighted, and it's getting noticeably worse every year. Yeah, I'm absolutely someone who struggles to recognise faces. I get that. I've had things where, like, friends have walked into a bar and I've been like, from a distance, "Oh, who's that?" Like, literally not known who they are because, like, they're just a blur to me. Like, so I get that. But as far as we know, Adam doesn't struggle with face blindness, and he's not short-sighted. And when, like, what? 20 minutes ago, you were looking at the picture of a man who could be instrumental to getting you off a murder charge, and now you see him again, you would think he would place it together. You'd think that would click. No, but no. In this case, it's just incompetence for the sake of dragging out the story, and it's just not fun. The man beside her notices she's stopped dead in her tracks and follows her gaze to find me. His eyes widen and then narrow. He recognises me, and for a gleaming second I recognise him, but then I lose it as my attention refocuses on the she-devil in front of me. The woman attempting to steal my life, the woman who killed Kelly. Not sure how we jumped to that, but here we are. "You!" I point at her as I close the gap between us, ready to tackle her, ready to hit her, ready to... I don't even know what I'm ready to do. She screams. It pierces the stale office air. So for a man who's trying to convince us he's not violent and didn't kill a woman, he's threatening a hell of a lot of violence against women in these couple of chapters, isn't he? Thankfully, before he can do anything to Anne, Bob punches him in the face and knocks him down. I don't normally condone any kind of violence, but I will make an exception here. Good job, Bob. "He came at Anne," Bob points at me. "That's Bob." "Oh yes, I know Bob. He's the one who's been giving Sarah crap for the past couple of years and gunning for her job at any chance he can get. He's an effing penis, and I never liked him even before Sarah had problems with him. He's smug, and he's always treated me as if he were better than me. Any office party Sarah dragged me to, he was there to remind us all how great he is." He still hasn't placed where he knows him from. He's so dumb. He's so stupid. Anne admits to taking and sending the photos, but she says she didn't kill Kelly. Nothing new here, I guess. Sarah's upset with Anne, going, "How could you not tell me, Anne? You're my assistant. You're my friend. You're practically family. Blah, blah, blah." I did say out of nowhere, the sheriff, Deputy Hudson, and Officer Scott Summers show up. And I was like, from where? Why? Is his ankle monitor? I was the one being dumb there. They're tracking his ankle monitor, of course. It's just, they were very slow in getting to him. Anyway. And also, why is Scott allowed to be there? This is the man who apparently killed his husband. Like, surely this is a massive conflict of interest, no? Does this police department not have any other officers? Apparently not. But don't worry, Adam still has time to be stupid amongst all this drama. "Everybody freeze!" Sheriff Stevens draws his gun. Deputy Hudson and Officer Scott Summers are standing on either side of him with guns drawn too. F. I put my hands up. Everyone else puts their hands up as well. Sarah appears annoyed, as does Bob. I feel like you need a comma in there. God, where the hell did I just see him? I rack my brain trying to recall. Sarah hasn't dragged me to an office party in quite some time. Maybe he was at the courthouse. Maybe he gave an interview on the case, and I saw him on the news or in the paper. Poop. I've seen that smug face, and it was recent. So recent it scares me. Because I know it's important, but I can't recall. Adam. I'm glad I don't know him in real life. I'm glad he's not real. Adam calls Anne a bitch some more, and then he gets arrested. Love that for him. Anne is taken in for questioning, and the sheriff sums up my thoughts on this whole book. This is an effing nightmare. Finally, after like 8 pages, Adam finally stops being stupid. And it's at that moment that I realise where I saw Bob recently. It's the look on his face that brings back the image. My mouth drops open. My eyes grow wild. This mother effer. It's you! I point at Bob's smug face. Me what? He asks. You! You're Nicholas Robert Miller. You're Kelly's ex-husband's brother. It's about time, mate. Bob admits it, but then he's like, hey, I don't want to get dragged into any of this. Calm yourself. He goes, Jesus effing Christ. This case was supposed to be closed, Sheriff Stevenson says in exasperation. Scott begins breathing heavily, and then in an instant, he's on top of Bob, pummeling away. Sheriff Stevens and Deputy Hudson scream at him to stop and pull him off. After a cacophony of shouting and tangling and untangling of polyester, the chaos subsides and heavy panting begins to fill the space. I'll have your effing badge for this, you ape pig piece of poop, Bob yells at Deputy Summers, blood spraying from his mouth. Bob doesn't appear to be anywhere near physically capable of taking on the good deputy mano a mano, but if looks could kill, Scott would be side by side with his dearly departed wife. Is there a single man in this book that isn't just a violent piece of crap? It's ridiculous. Bob and Anne turn up for police interviews. Eleanor, Adam's mum, is there too, and she's awful as ever. Sarah responds by thinking about violence. Like, why is this the first response of everyone in the book? Just violence. Oh God, listen to this. Eleanor, just stop. You're being ridiculous. I shake my head. This is Sarah, by the way. Am I? You can even keep an eye on your own mother. And look what happened to her. The corners of her mouth curve into a grin as if she's pleased with her little comment. Anne lets out an audible gasp. Bob shifts uncomfortably in his seat. Matthew half stands but then sits back down. I'd love to knock her out and bash her skull into the ground over and over again until I see brain, if she even has one. But I don't need to defend myself for murder as well. I have to put an end to Eleanor's involvement in this case and in my life, and I know just what to say. I take a deep breath. Seriously, the amount of violence these people want to inflict on others is disturbing. Your son is a liar, a cheater, and possibly a murderer. Your coddling and over-the-top mothering has gotten Adam into this mess. The best thing you could do as a mother is to take note from mine and kill yourself. Eleanor's eyes widen to a new level and her mouth gapes. She raises a hand and slaps me hard across the face. You wouldn't know a mother's love, you little bitch. This is shocking. This is ridiculous. Everyone in this book is a terrible person. Shocking. Shocking. Before we see the interviews, Adam and Scott have a little heart-to-heart because he wants to know everything about Bob and Anne, and then Adam also reveals that Rebecca's been helping him. We go back to Sarah, and she's watching Anne's interview first. It's just a repeat of stuff we already know. Anne likes photography, she caught them by accident. Then Sarah fantasizes about beating up Anne, which is, there's a lot of violence. This is not normal behaviour, but okay, I guess. And then Sarah narrates, I let out a large breath I didn't realise I was holding. I know Matthew's right. Anne is like the little sister I never had. Our relationship is more than a subordinate and a superior, more than a meal ticket and a mouth to be fed, more than a rung on a ladder to be climbed and an ambitious young woman. But that doesn't change one thing. I'm still enraged, and maybe just a little bit hurt. And at this point I was like, okay, maybe they're not having an affair. Or at least I hope they're not after this line about her being like a little sister, you know. So I'm amending that part of my theory, but everything else still stands. Now it's Bob's interview, and once again, Deputy Marcus Hudson sneaks in to watch, and Sarah's like, I'm suspicious of you, and he's like, okay. Bob literally just confirms that Kelly was his sister-in-law, and then the sheriff's like goading him, so he just walks out of his interview, so we don't actually learn anything new. That was a waste of all of our time. Okay. Sarah goes in and shouts at the sheriff because she says he was borderline torturing a man about his effing dead brother. You found a wound, stuck a knife in, and amused yourself as you slowly started twisting. He isn't on trial here for murder. He was trying to be agreeable as best he could, but do you think he will help now? Yeah, kind of fair. I still think the sheriff is dodgy as hell. Sarah goes home and drinks what I assume is vodka. I don't know, she uses the brand name again, and then she info-dumps about her family history. I didn't know love from my mother, at least not since my father passed. He was the glue that kept us all together, the one who encouraged me in life and brought joy to my mother. My father was the sole breadwinner and was the only thing keeping our little nucleus rotating smoothly, but that came to a screeching halt. We lost everything with one unfair act. We don't actually find out how her father died, I don't think. Or if we do, it's not important, so let's move on. When he was gone, we had nothing. No money, no income, no spark of life. My mother couldn't hold a job because she was so depressed that she slept all day and rarely ate or spoke. I'm getting quite tired of this, like, everyone's life falls apart without a man narrative, but here we are. She reminisces about one argument with her mother, where she said to her mum, "Your house? Your house? This isn't your house, it's Dad's. You've never worked a day in your life. You are so pathetically reliant on one man that now you have nothing and know how to do nothing. You are weak and pathetic, and you can't even keep it together for the two of us. You're supposed to be the adult here, not me." Which is ironic, considering that that's the position Adam is in with her, so I have to credit the author here for that little detail. I think that was good. Clearly Sarah was like, I'm never becoming like my mother, and yet she married someone who was like her mother. Then her mum got addicted to drugs and became a prostitute, as you do, so they lived in shelters throughout Sarah's teen years, until on my 16th birthday, I found my mum's body in a cockroach-infested motel room we'd been staying at. She'd overdosed on heroin, her gift to me. I would no longer have to care for her, working 40 hours a week to support us both, have to fight off the men that thought I would be a sweet indulgence after she'd passed out. So that's sad, and apparently that's her tragic backstory as to why she doesn't want kids herself. Again, don't like that. You can just make people child-free for the sake of it, but anyway, we cut back to Adam, who, being the idiot that he is, decides he's just going to break out of the police station because apparently no one's watching him. People here are so bad at his job. So he does. He breaks out of the police station, and he wants to try and find Rebecca the reporter. So creepy. He's like, I think she maybe mentioned once roughly where she lives. So he goes to try and track her down, and he's like searching around a bunch of neighbourhoods and stuff, whatever. There's more long paragraphs of self-pity because it's raining and he doesn't know where he is, and boo-hoo, what a poor little man. And honestly, the book is getting boring and dragging out at this point. I think it's because I don't care about any of these characters. Sarah tries to meet with the DA again and get him to help her investigate the evidence, and he refuses because he just wants to win the case and put anyone in prison. Doesn't matter if it's the right person. Instead, she decides to ask Matthew to help her illegally acquire and test DNA samples from a bunch of men, and he's like, yeah, sure, no problem, let's do that. Back to Adam, he's still on the run. He goes to this petrol station and he borrows a phone from a guy working there. He tries to call Rebecca, she doesn't answer. Tries to call his agent, and he's like, I'm not helping you, mate. Bye. And then he calls his mum, and she's like, oh, he's like, oh, my poor little boy, I'll help you, I'll give you money, I'll do whatever you need. Hate that woman. The most unbelievable part of this book, though, is that in 2023, when this was written and set, is that anyone would remember that many phone numbers off the top of their head, especially of someone like Rebecca, who he's just met. You know, no one remembers phone numbers these days. I couldn't tell you anyone's phone number, except my parents' landline that they've had for the last... Well, I'm nearly 33, so they've had it at least 33 years, if not more. And my own mobile number. They're the only numbers that I remember. If some random reporter that I'd met twice before gave me their phone number, I would not remember it off the top of my head to just dial it in a traumatic situation, you know? Anyway, his mum says of course she'll help him. He'll meet her at a hotel later that night, but first he's going to go and try and find Rebecca's house again. As you do, I guess. Bit of advice to the guys listening to this video. I know there's not many of you, but... Just an idea. Don't show up uninvited to some woman's house when you've just escaped from jail or any other time. Yeah? That's creepy. So he goes to the house and he finds she's just got out of the shower and she's just wrapped in a towel. So instead of being like, oh, sorry, you get yourself changed, he like bangs on the door like crazy and then he pushes his way into her house. Again, please don't do this to people, especially women living alone. Rebecca says, like, oh God, I can't help you. I'm being watched and followed by someone because she's been helping Adam. This is a lie, by the way. I don't think she has. But his response is to grab her by the wrists, stop her moving, and kiss her against her will. She says, I should never have got involved. I have to leave. I have to disappear. It's fine. I grab her wrists. She tries to wriggle away. I don't let her. I pull her in. I hug her tightly. She stops resisting. We'll go to the police together. We'll tell them everything you found. I won't let anything happen to you. I pull out of the hug and look into her eyes, trying to reassure her. Leaning in, I kiss her. It's a kiss of comfort. At least I think it is. At least I hope she knows it is. I kiss her again and again until she stops crying. When she's calmed down, I think I've helped, until a flash of anger spreads across her face. This man is literally the worst. What is wrong with him? Obviously, she tries to throw him out of the house, but not before the police show up and rearrest him. Thankfully. We go back to Sarah's chapter. She's talking to Bob. Bob says he has an alibi for the night of the murder, so it wasn't him. He was away on some work thing in another city. Okay. Weirdly, Sarah asks about Anne too. I don't know why she's asking Bob about this, but apparently she is. She seems to be cleared, he says. Seems? Yes. I don't question him any further. There's no way Anne could have done this. She doesn't have it in her. She's meek and kind. She couldn't even tell me that Adam was cheating on me. How the hell could she pull off a murder? And at this point, I was really confused because I was like, no, you know she couldn't have done it because she was literally with you when it happened, wasn't she? Like, you went out for drinks together. Isn't that meant to be like the whole point of your going out for drinks? It's like an alibi for both of you. Or, no, apparently not. Based on what we learn at the end of this book, and I promise you we're nearly there. We are nearly there. This whole bit is stupid. I feel like at the end, I'm going to need to come back and just like reflect on a few of these points with you, but we'll get there. Bob also says that his bank accounts have been checked, so the police know he didn't pay someone to commit the murder. We go back to Adam in jail. There's more self-pity. Now Sarah's there. She's mad at him, obviously. She also reveals a twist, just for funsies. She's looking through, like, files or something that he has or that someone has, or I don't remember at this point. There's a picture of Rebecca clipped to the left side, and on the right side, there's some sort of report. What's this? That's Rebecca Sanford, only she's not a reporter, she's a private investigator, and she was hired by Scott Summers. So, at this point, I was like, I know this is meant to be like a shocking twist, and we're meant to be shocked by it, but it really doesn't change anything, does it? And it's just like a twist thrown in for the sake of it. So I kind of didn't care. Sarah gets the results of her illegal DNA test back, and oh my god, there's a match to the third sample, but obviously she doesn't say who it is yet. And I was like, we still have 12% of the book to get through. I'm sure we'll get it at some point. And then we cut back to Adam and it's the trial day. And here's what's really, really stupid. This whole book has been building up to this trial. And we're supposed to be excited to see, like, what Sarah does, how she defends him, the outcome of the trial, all this stuff. Like, this whole book has been about building up to this trial. And we don't get to see any of it. None of the trial is in this book. It is so damn stupid and frustrating. We don't even learn about the DNA tests in the trial. No. So Adam narrates, "This is it. My entire life comes down to this. My life is in Sarah's hands, the judge's hands, the jury's hands, anyone's but mine. It's up to them now. Sarah, my sweet Sarah, taking on the world while I'm still struggling to live in it. Better yet, stay alive in it. Oh, shut up already. Adam, you've done nothing but resent her, and now you need her and everything you resented about her, and you're still moaning about it. Grow up and be quiet. Please." So we do get one chapter in which Sarah gives her opening statement, which is just a repeat and a recap of everything we've read in the book so far, you know, in case you forgot, I guess. But then the chapter ends and we immediately time skip to the trial being over and the jury deliberations taking place, and for whatever reason we see none of the trial, and I hate it. It's so stupid. All of a sudden, oh my god, the verdict is back. It all happened very quickly instead of over weeks like was to be expected. We get one resolution here in that Anne is back in my good graces. It took me a while to forgive her, for her to earn my trust back, but she did. She stuck with me through this whole trial, all the way up until the very end, which seems like it might be today. So, again, that whole resolution took place off page. It would have been interesting to see like how they worked it out together and some conversations between them, but no, just off page. In court, I can feel Adam's heartbeat in his hand. It's fast, loud, panicky. Judge Dion returns the verdict to the clerk. Will the defendant please rise? Adam stands, letting go of my hand. The foreperson clears her throat. We, the jury, find the defendant. And that's it. That's where the chapter ends. We don't even get to see the jury response on page. The verdict, sorry. We don't get to see the verdict on page. We don't get to see Adam's response to this on page. You know, any of this interesting stuff. That's it. The chapter just ends and we skip to 11 years later. And instead of us watching the action unfold on the page in front of us, we just get an info dump from Sarah. And it's in this chapter that we get like all the reveals of the entire book, the resolution to half the plots that and half the mysteries that it's been building up to. Many of them, she just leaves completely open, doesn't bother to give us answers. It's... Did I do everything in my power to save Adam? To try and save the man who ruined our love and our marriage? I ask myself the same question sometimes, and the only answer I've ever come up with is that I did what I had to do to survive. Random full stop in there. Today is the day of Adam's execution. So yes, you read that right. He was not only found guilty, but he was sentenced to the death penalty. Again, I would have loved to have seen his reaction to that on page, but no, I guess not. Okay. I stopped writing or visiting him over 10 years ago, right around the time he went insane. What in the Frida McFadden is this? Okay. Every visit became more explosive than the last, and I couldn't do it anymore. He had lost all hope after his conviction, and a human without hope is a wild animal. I needed to move on, and I did. If Adam hasn't, well, that choice will be made for him today. I've come to say goodbye. I've come to give myself some closure, or at least I think I have. Adam may not have murdered Kelly Summers, but he is paying for his crimes. And you know what, though? This doesn't surprise me that he was found guilty and, like, that he's being executed. I felt like this is what was being set up in the entire book, like some big miscarriage of justice. Like, doesn't surprise me. This is fine. And again, I'm not exactly sad about it. I don't like Adam as a character. This is fine. I think the whole making him go insane bit is a bit of a cop-out and quite offensive, but here we are. I'm able to speak to Adam before he's executed, since I was the lawyer on his case, and I am still his wife. Yes, we're still married. Adam refused to sign any divorce papers, and I didn't fight him on it. Sure, and for plot convenience too, I guess. I plan to remarry tomorrow, as I will be a widow by the end of the day. We're having a wedding on the beach with close friends and family. It's going to be beautiful. From now on, everything in my life is going to be beautiful. We cut to Adam's self-pity and perspective again. Sarah came to see me today. I wanted to see her for so long. He's very coherent for someone who's apparently insane, isn't he? I know. I wanted to see her for so long. I've lost count of how many years it's been. And now here she finally is, right in front of me. It feels bittersweet. She doesn't seem to be herself, at least not the Sarah I remember. She's cold and disinterested, and for some reason she keeps squeezing my hand in a way that doesn't convey love or affection, but rather something else. At first I thought it was for comfort, whether for her or me, I wasn't sure. But the timing of the squeezes is off. No, actually the timing of them is perfect, right down to the second. One every single minute. Why is she doing that? I don't know why she's doing that. We never find out. I don't know why this was put in here. Adam goes on about how he thinks they could have rebuilt their relationship if he'd been found not guilty, and he never gave up on them. I don't care. I don't like him. I do not care. Sarah does not give a damn, though. She is cold with him, and then before leaving, she tells him, she leans in, whispering into my ear, I know for a fact it wasn't you. See? I told you from the beginning that I thought she was doing whatever she could to get him convicted as revenge, right? Obvious. Adam dies. I can't pretend to be sad. Okay. And then we get Sarah's full confession. I learned about Kelly and Adam before she took her final breath. Bob had approached me with evidence of Adam's infidelities. Bob! Which he'd come across because he was looking to destroy Kelly's life after what she did to his poor brother. He thought he would kill two birds with one stone, that he'd blackmail me into resigning out of embarrassment, or at the very least I would lose focus so he could swoop in and get my partnership while taking down Kelly at the same time. He was wrong too. When he brought this to my attention, my reaction was nothing like what he expected, but more than he could have ever hoped for. We decided to kill Kelly and frame Adam. After all, they did have it coming. Bob was out of town when she was killed to ensure that when the connection between him and Kelly was found out, he'd have an alibi. I didn't want any loose ends. I wasn't pleased to learn that Anne knew that Adam was cheating on me. As soon as I discovered the photo in Adam's desk, I knew it was her behind it. Think how I wouldn't recognise my own assistant's handwriting? I ultimately did end up forgiving her, letting it all go. After all, we were both each other's alibis. That night, we went out on the town. She didn't keep track of time or her own alcohol intake. Why would she? She idolized me. I was everything she aspired to be. Time with me was like gold to her. I knew that. I counted on it. Sarah's insufferable here. I also knew all of Adam's vices, and besides young vagina... I don't like that word, I'm sorry. It feels wrong for me to say. I have no problem with other people saying it. It feels wrong coming out of my mouth. Like, if I was to say, like, Riz, doesn't feel right. Doesn't feel natural for me. I'm not cool enough. Anyway, Adam's vices, besides young vagina and self-loathing, his next favourite was scotch. Putting a handful of roofies in the decanter was as easy as, well, Kelly. Not sure I like the slut-shaming here, but okay, she did help your husband cheat on you, so I'll give you that. With them both completely out for the evening, their memories on pause, all I needed was a quick detour from the bar at 10 p.m. and a sharp knife. It was simple, like punching holes in a box so the animal inside can have air to breathe. But the opposite in this case. Oh, there's so much to say about this, isn't there? One, that writing is terrible. Who is her editor? Why did she let it get away with this? And two, this was my theory from the very first page. Sarah did it out of revenge because she knew about the affair. And it's just, well, not even from the first page, from the blurb. We knew this was coming from the blurb. It is the obvious answer, and it's supposed to be a twist. And for that reason, I just find it a bit of a shame, you know? I guess all my other theories that I've come up with throughout this video and while I was reading it, they were all too fun. I genuinely thought with the reviews this was going to be like a ridiculous, laughable, unexpected twist, not the obvious answer. And I have to admit, I'm a bit disappointed. You know, I will say Bob helping her, that was a shock, but in the sense that it didn't really make sense. You know, my other theories are also right. So who was this third guy? Had he seen anything? Thank God it ended up being that dip poop. See, that doesn't make sense when you replace the swear words. Sheriff Stevens. Yet another man who couldn't keep his penis in his pants. Once I figured it out, I made sure to keep that from the case because I planned and pushed for a speedy trial and a guilty verdict, and I didn't need that muddying everything. So there we go, we guessed right there. Obvious. Sheriff Stevens ended up helping me anyway without knowing it, thanks to his sloppy police work. Adam definitely had Rohypnol in his system. I know this because he didn't move, not even once, when I stabbed Kelly to death. So again, we all guessed this, but I just find his incompetence really annoying and poorly written, because it's literally not written for a reason other than to be a plot device, and it's just... it's very frustrating. And then we get another twist about Rebecca, the journalist / private investigator, just for the sake of it, really. And what about Rebecca Sanford, the young wannabe journalist on whom Adam banked all of his hope? She was, in fact, a private investigator, but she wasn't hired by Scott. She was hired by Bob when her job was done. She was hired by Bob, and when her job was done, she left town as arranged. Her job was to keep an eye on Adam, to steer him in the direction we wanted. Yeah, I didn't see this coming, but again, it feels inconsequential. She didn't even really do anything, so why does this matter? Whether she was hired by Bob or by Scott, it's exactly the same. Even if she was a journalist, it's exactly the same. It doesn't actually have any consequences.
Okay, editing me jumping in with another massive plot hole, because apparently Rebecca the journalist works for Sarah and Bob, right? So why would she give Adam Bob's phone number and tell him essentially that he is this Nicholas guy? Why would they want Adam to know this? Why would they just give him this information? Why would they incriminate Bob? What? It doesn't make any sense. I don't get it. No.
I'll never know what really happened between Kelly and Greg or Kelly and Scott. Was she the victim of the men in her life? Was she abused? Or was she a girl who cried wolf? I'll never know, and neither will anyone else. This is so annoying. This is one of the few things that I genuinely wanted answers to and wanted to see where she was going with this. But I feel like even the implication that Kelly was a woman who lied about her abuse is really damn harmful and horrible, and just, I hate that it's even a possibility, you know? Also, I hate that, like, there's a worse punishment in this book for a man who just cheated on his wife, Adam. He literally ends up incarcerated for 11 years and then dead because he cheated on his wife. But these men who, like Jesse, who may have been stalking Kelly, and Greg and Scott, who may have abused Kelly, right? Or maybe the sheriff abused her, we don't know. But there's a chance that there's at least 1 to 4 men in this book who were repeatedly and regularly abusing women. And sure, Greg ended up dead, I get that. But the rest of them faced absolutely no consequences. So you're telling me this book made a point to be like, yeah, you get killed for cheating, but domestic violence, who cares? We don't need to punish them if they did that. We don't even need to find out if it really happened. Blech. Like, I hate that. I absolutely hate that. That's what I mean about, I do not like how that storyline was handled in this book. I found it really damn offensive. So not only was Sarah working with Bob, but again, this is something else I didn't see coming. The person she was having the affair with was not Anne, so I was wrong there. It's actually Bob. She was having an affair with Bob, and she now is marrying Bob and has a child with Bob, because of course she does. It wasn't that she was really child-free, she just needed the right man to come along and convince her she needed a baby. The kid's now 8 years old, and what's ridiculous is they called the kid Summer. As in, Kelly Summers. They've called their daughter Summer after the woman they murdered. And that is where the book ends. Like, how disappointing. I really enjoyed coming up with all my stupid, crazy theories, only for my boring, obvious, got it from the blurb theory to be right all along. I find that really annoying. What I will say, though, is it's not the worst book I've ever read. It was just very underwhelming, and I felt very deflated after I finished it. I think the annoying thing for me, though, was like going back on this second read as I'm recording this video scripted stuff. Like, you see just how many inconsistencies there are and how little this book makes sense. Like, okay, I thought Sarah being the killer was the obvious one, but it's not written well enough that that's a satisfying ending, because there's all these things where, like, you know, she spends so much time being like, well, you know, and she's narrating to herself. She's not talking to anyone else. She's narrating to herself and to the reader. So there is no reason for her to lie or hide information or withhold information. And yet she still spends so much time being like, well, could Adam have done this? I don't know. Maybe, could Kelly have, not Kelly, could Anne have done this? And like weighing up in her mind who she thinks is guilty. And it's like, you don't need to weigh it up in your mind because you know that you did it, you know? Plus, like, the wonky timeline of the first few chapters, we are led to believe that this is in chronological order, right? Except how it's actually gone down is that, like, Sarah kills Kelly, and then we see the scenes of Kelly and Adam having sex, and then Sarah goes and gets her alibi with Anne, and then Kelly is dead and Adam leaves. So it's kind of out of order, which is another annoying thing. There were also some bits that were, like, really obvious. Like the bit in the first chapter where... Sarah basically, like, says, like, oh, should I call the whole thing off? And she's basically, like, admitting her plan there. There's that. I think we're meant to, like, believe in the moment that she's talking about work, but then looking back, it's like, okay, that was about the murder. That was at least a good bit of writing because that was ambiguous. But then she has other bits where, like, she's just straight up lying to the audience repeatedly and, like, things that don't make sense. And I hate it. I absolutely hate it. There's so many inconsistencies when you go back and read it, and I'm finding it very frustrating. I also think it's important to mention that there are 2 versions of this book. The original from 2020, which I think is the version that I have, and a newer version from 2024, which has supposedly been updated and improved on. One of the worst things apparently about the 2020 edition was the excessive swearing, and I heard it was toned down in the 2024 version. So I did a little detective work and also tracked that version down. Because when I first did my review, I didn't actually know which version I had. I just thought there was one version and it was the one that I had. But then I found this out and did a bit of detective work. Anyway, I decided to do a little swear count because this is something I do in my videos sometimes for fun, or like when they overuse a phrase, I do a little phrase count and stuff. in the 2020 version, there were 157 variations of the F word used, whereas in the 2024 version, there are only 37. So this absolutely was toned down. Great, love that. The number of bitches, however, was only cut down from 14 to 13, and the number of S words was only cut down from 50 to 48. So other than a few less F words, the swearing wasn't really cut down all that much at all. I compared a lot of the key passages too, and I didn't really see much changing in terms of writing style. So the bad grammar was still the same, the poor quality writing was still the same. There were apparently a few extra bits thrown in, like for example, in the last chapter, there's apparently a line about how, another shocking twist, Sarah killed her mum. Apparently she's the one who gave her mum the last dose of heroin that killed her because she wanted to get away or something. So yeah, I don't really think that adds to the book, but it's in there, I guess. I thought it was worth mentioning. I thought we would end this video by just taking a quick look at some of other people's reviews of this book. This one in particular I agree with. It gave it 1 star and it said, ugh, I honestly don't know how this book is so highly rated. I had to speed read through parts of it just so I could finish it. I thought the premise was really interesting and wanted to know who the killer was, which is why I did not finish it. But man, I wish I had. The reveal and ending were not worth it at all. I agree. Those are hours of my life that I won't get back, but hey, at least that's one more book for my reading challenge. Anyway, where do I start? I do not like the writing style at all. So many unnecessary descriptions and metaphors. I agree with that. So many pointless things minutely explained. There wasn't a single likeable character in the book. Again, I agree with that. Pretty much everything they did and the way they interacted with each other was exasperating or stupid. I was constantly shaking my head or rolling my eyes. I agree. I hated how they just made everyone so incompetent. And sorry, this is me speaking now, not reading the review. It was really, really frustrating. They didn't even consider that Sarah could be a suspect. So there was no tension there. There was no moments of her nearly getting caught. There was no way of her having to cleverly figure a way out of things. It's just, there was nothing. I wish people had actually been good at their jobs and it would have created a bit of tension in this book, but no, okay. Back to the review, and it says, the trial, which seemed like it would be a pretty important part of the book, gets glossed over. Exactly. We get the defence's opening statement, then the verdict. How did the jury come to the verdict? The one time I wanted details about something in the book. Sigh. Nothing about this book was gripping or suspenseful. The twists were lame. The reveal was lame. The explanation of why and how the murder was committed was lame. The ending was lame. All of the characters were irritating and just, ugh. The only good thing about this book was that it was on Kindle Unlimited, so I didn't waste my money on it. I won't be reading anything by this author again. And finally, another review says, what a piece of garbage. I read a lot of psychological thrillers, and this one missed the mark on every level. I agree. I completely agree. Absolutely unbelievable plot, one-dimensional characters, insane plot holes, zero redeeming qualities. If I'd purchased a physical copy instead of digital, I would have thrown it in the trash to remove just one copy from the world. Let's not do that, please. Put it in the recycling. Clearly the author has absolutely no idea how forensics, DNA, police investigations, blood splatter, or prosecutions work. Exactly. Simple Google searches could have alleviated the utterly massive inaccuracies. I completely agree. I love it when a book is accurate to that kind of thing. It doesn't have to be spot on. You can take some creative liberties, I'll give you that. But it's one of the reasons I love Peter James's writing in his Roy Grace series, is because he's worked so closely with the actual Brighton Police Department where Roy Grace works in the books. That he has things down to he maybe goes over the top for some people and he goes into too much detail for some people, but I really enjoy that about his books. He'll tell us the names of the systems and the computer systems and stuff like that, and the databases and where people get their information from, and he'll sometimes go into the history of this and oh, this was introduced in this year, and before this the police department did it like this, and Roy did this earlier in his career, but now he can do this, and there's people working in this department and they do this and this, and the details are there, the accuracy is there. Roy Grace is such a competent police officer, and he's a good guy and he's nice, and he means well, but there's also a big mystery around him and his background, which is really engaging, and I find that so much more satisfying to read than this, where everyone was just incompetent just because the plot required it. It just it bothered me. It's interesting how this book didn't frustrate me so much while I was reading it. And then when I finished it, I was like, I actually hate this. And then on like a partial reread while I was recording this, I hated it even more. So yeah, that's interesting. Either way though, I did actually have fun making this video because it was good to just laugh and be ridiculous and come up with some silly theories. Because yeah, I can be like, oh, it's frustrating because it's a bad book, but it's not overly harmful. It's not like this is the end of the world, and it's nice to just have a giggle about something and have a little bit of fun. So yeah, and I need that right now, which is good. So thank you so much for listening today. I appreciate you guys so much. I hope you don't mind that I've just included a little bit of gameplay footage in the background of this while I talked, because yeah, I needed something. But yeah, thank you so much for, and I said this in a community tab post as well, but while Kara's been ill, so many of you have been so supportive and so nice and sent me so many lovely messages and comments, and I just want to say like how much I appreciate it and how it really has helped. And like knowing that you guys love and care about Kyra almost as much as I do, like it really does mean a lot. And like I said, I didn't ask for it, but like some people were lovely enough to send little donations over PayPal, and some people were very generous over PayPal to help with her vet's bills. And I just want to extend like an extra thank you to every single one of you. Like whether you gave like £1 or something more, like every little does help, and every penny will be going towards Kyra and her next lot of checkups and blood tests and any other testing that she needs, and also like her future medication and everything like that. So thank you so much. Like I don't have enough words to say like how generous you all are and how much we appreciate it and how much it helps me and the little one. And it does just take this weight off knowing that I can afford to look after her and get her the help she needs thanks to you guys. And you know, even things like you watching these videos right now and sitting through like ads and stuff like that, that all helps and goes towards helping make sure I can look after my little one. And I just want to thank you so much. Yeah, okay, I'm not gonna get emotional because I will. It's been a rough couple of weeks, but we are getting out of the woods now. She's getting better. She's coping with her new medication well. Her wobbly legs are reducing a lot, which is good. She hasn't had another seizure since she started on this medication, so yeah, it's I'm hopeful. We still don't know the cause of it, unfortunately. We know it wasn't caused by her fleeing treatments, because she's on the same brand that she's always been on. And her last treatment was about 2 weeks before the seizure. And if it was going to be caused by that, it would have been within hours of having the treatment rather than weeks. So we know it wasn't that. We know it's not her kidneys. We know it's not her heart. We know all her nutrition levels are good. We know her blood sugar is good. We know her blood pressure is good. The only thing that's got like a little question mark over it at the minute is her liver function. But we don't know if that was like the levels that they were testing were high because like as a result of the seizure rather than the cause of the seizure. So that's what she's going back to have other blood tests for, to check on her liver function and check that the medication she's on isn't damaging her liver anymore. And if it's not the liver, then it could potentially be her brain. We need to figure out if she needs an MRI scan or anything going forward, which it wouldn't be pleasant for her. And it might not even tell us anything new. The treatment would potentially be the same, so it might just be a matter of treating her going forwards. And hi, baby, you come to say hi. You know I'm talking about you. Bless her. Okay, this little one definitely wants some attention, don't you, babes? Yeah. Okay, I'm done talking about sad stuff. I'm gonna go cuddle my little baby bear, aren't I? Yes. Are we gonna go have a snuggle? Are we gonna have a snuggle? Bless her. I wish you guys could see her right now. She's so beautiful. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your time and your attention. And I appreciate you all so much. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. You have a lot to say. Bless her. Okay, I'll see you guys again soon. Bye. Oh, you're such a gorgeous girl, aren't you? You little silly goose. You want to say hi? Yeah, do you want to speak into the microphone? Go on then, let it out. Good girl. Oh, good girl. Are you ready for a snack, maybe? Or we could play.